Go live. 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Today is Wednesday, March 22nd, and this is the HHCSD Board of Education meeting. The board has just returned from executive session, and we're going to begin with the pledge. All right, we're beginning this evening with a wonderful introduction. Usually we do recognition, and this is sort of that, but even more special. We have Mr. Baker here, our athletic director, and he's going to introduce somebody very special and important to the community. So I'll let you have the honor.
Very much. Thank you for the entire Board of Education having me here tonight, Dr. Laura. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce somebody who's on the agenda to be appointed and start his time off here in our community, and I think it's going to be a very exciting time. I have a meeting here, right? Coach Cole Coyle with me, I'm going to introduce him. So, yeah, give him a round of applause. Tonight, Cole is being appointed as the 5th varsity football coach since 1971 here at HHCSD. And what I think is most nice is that in the early times that Cole has come through the hiring process and meeting some of our student athletes in that process, the amount of these young men that came out tonight to support him is kind of really indicative of the kind of young man that we have here tonight to lead our program. He's ready to hit the ground running and start off as early as next week. And I'm sure these guys are excited as well. He's also being appointed tonight. He's going to take on our strength and conditioning role for the springtime. We're starting next week, and we'll be able to open up our weight room in the evenings and Saturday morning, whatever he can. And all of the students and student athletes can attend that as well. So that'll be a nice little part of the program as well. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce somebody I'm very excited to work with here at HHCSD, and that's Cole Coyle. So congratulations.
Not great with speeches, so thank you everyone, unless it's, I guess, a halftime speech. Thank you to all the football players that came out tonight. That's, awesome, and I think that speaks to your character and to where we want this program to go. Thank you, Mr. Baker and Dr. Laura, for the opportunity, and to the rest of the board for having me here tonight, and to all the parents and everybody else in this room. We're excited. We're ready to get into the weight room and get this program back on track. And last but not least, I would like to thank my amazing fiance, Jackie, who is a HHCSD graduate. She's we want to get these boys in the weight room. We want to get them going. The weight room, like Mr. Baker said, is going to be open for everybody, not just the football program, but you better believe the football program will be in the weight room. We're excited to get everything started and hit the ground running here. So thank you all for having me tonight, and go Sailors.
Cole comes to us from the RC football staff. He's been down there the last 2 years. He's a certified PE and health teacher teaching down county. So we've had the opportunity to really have a healthy, competitive opponent in Ardsley, and they speak very highly of him, and they were really disappointed to lose him, but excited for the opportunity for us to gain him and lead our program. So as I said earlier, thank you for having the opportunity to present him tonight. I'm just excited for Cole and for all these young men here tonight for our entire community. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. I told him the players here will probably walk down the hallway and have a little goodbye with him down there, but thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. Great to see all of you. All right. We need to begin by approving the agenda for the evening. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Can I have a second? All in favor? All right. So we're going to move on to our audience comments section for non-agenda items. But before we start, I want to make sure that I acknowledge all of you that came out tonight, and thank you for being here with us. I want to make sure that we are all respectful of one another, that there is no clapping, yelling, chanting, screaming. or making each other feel uncomfortable. Everyone has their own right to be here. And we welcome you and we want you to come back. So let's all, be kind to the people that are around us. Public comment section, there's a whole long spiel here. I hate to read it, but I'm gonna hit all the keynotes. We allot 15 minutes for this part of the meeting. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. Please come up to the podium when Carmen calls you and let us know who you are, state your name, and just be respectful in what you say. We don't want to call out anybody by name specifically, and we want to make sure that it's productive. It's a productive time. So we will begin our non-agenda items. Did anyone sign up?
Our first speaker is Ms. Dr. Christine Rogers.
And that sort of clapping is totally welcome.
Change your glasses so that we can read them. Thank you very much for having me. I am Dr. Christine Rogers, and I am a science research teacher. I am also the AP Bio teacher, and I teach also one section of behavioral environment. I am coming here tonight on the very light concern that a few parents and community members have come to talk to me about their worry that the science research program was having too few students and may be cut because of that. I just wanted to go back into some context. This is a 3-year program, and it started, this cohort started in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And this is one of the reasons right now why we have so few students in the program. Everything was closed. The colleges would not accept any students for internship. And so that became very difficult to run the program in the past 3 years. We are hoping that this fall there will be more enrollment. This is why I'm here today. I want to call up on the parents of freshmen to consider this program, because often they do not know about it until much later, and then it's too late to enroll. Students can earn up to 12 credits from SUNY at Albany, and those are real credits. They're not, maybe credits from the AP College Board. And so that those credits will factor in the application for medical school or grad school, because they will level up their undergrad credits as this factors in raising their undergrad credits. Additionally, I want to tell you that the science research does not use any lab equipment, just posters and like those that are displayed on the back of this room. Please take a moment to look at them. That's our only expense. STS semi-finalists bring back to the school $2,000 per students. And we had $7,000 brought back to the school in the previous years. Also, we have groundbreaking research. The students do PhD level research. And I'm not kidding. I send everybody their papers, so you can take a look at it and see for yourself what the level of this program is. I have only a few seconds left. I want to acknowledge Mrs. Joy and thank her very much for including us into the STEM Innovation Day on Saturday morning. Please come and see what we're doing. If you are interested in enrolling your son or daughter, come and see, talk with us. And I will also introduce my student that will come here and speak as well. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jasmine.
One thing about it, only because of my prior experience in Pelham and science research and all the work that we did. So I would just add to what she said. Sometimes you have to start small. When we started the program, it was exactly like that. When I left there, I was there only about a year ago, and I just want to say, he's got a full load of nothing but science research, and I commend you for what you're doing. I'm totally supportive of it, and I understand what COVID did to it. And it's certainly something that would be a good thing for our parents and everyone to get involved with. And the STEM program on Saturday is a good thing that I know is going on, and maybe we can take a look, and I'd like to try to stop by myself and come
Thank
look.
you so much for your
Thank you.
support.
Thank you.
Wait for my 3 minutes. Try to be a rule follower. That's what they teach here at Henna. Well, good. It's very nice to meet all of you. I'm seeing a lot of new faces here, so I just want to reintroduce myself. My name is Jazz Muniz. I'm a graduate back from 2015, and only one I see still is Enrique. It's good to see you. Back when I was in high school, I was elected to be the student representative to the Board of Education. So I got a lot of love for that experience. And I want to also kind of highlight my understanding of how difficult some of the decisions that you all have to make are. And that's why I'm here today, to try to give my little piece of support for my experience that I had here at Henna. Dr. Rogers does not want me to talk about her because she knows I would have nothing but the best things to say. But I will just say very quickly that this is a school that is extremely lucky to have some incredible teachers who are wise beyond their years. And wise beyond the years that they actually are, truly too. And with real world experience, we're making differences in the lives of students. So when I started out in high school, I was not a very good student. I was struggling in some of my initial classes. I was not a great studier. Got some teachers here who could absolutely vouch for that. Sophomore year, I made the decision. I hadn't heard a lot about the science research program. Somebody brought it to my attention because I was interested in nanotechnology and a bunch of different things, was reading the Verge, and I was just interested. And I made the decision between do I want to do science research or keep going with the band. And much to Mr. Frank's chagrin, I decided to go science research, but much to the rest of my life's joy and benefit, I'm very glad I did. I started research at Mount Sinai. I ended up becoming first author on my own manuscript. That led to me getting into Cornell, where I had an incredible time and quickly realized that all of the students there had research background and experience on their resume. That kickstarted me forward. I ended up taking a job again at Mount Sinai, where I've been for the last 4 years. I now manage a preclinical nuclear imaging facility. We do work with nanotherapeutics, and actually helped design one of the COVID treatments that's now getting fast tracked through the NIAID. So this program can really create some incredible things. And I'm now very excited to be heading off to medical school this summer, none of which would have been on my radar or possible without this program. Just to give a little bit of an idea of where academia is standing at the moment, it's struggling. Here in big institutions at Mount Sinai and elsewhere, we're having not enough students applying to PhD programs, not enough postdocs to apply, and we have a lot of open vacant space. We have room for students to come in, get their name on a manuscript, get some real world experience. And I just want to also say, obviously I can highlight science until I'm blue in the face, but I also want to say that these programs that are similar to science research, whether it be in sports or extracurriculars or anything, they're crucial for students. High school is really tough. You feel like you're on a very straight and narrow path, and it's not that exciting, to be honest. But once you get a glimpse of how your small interests and hobbies can become a real world life path that you can follow, it changes the entire thing and it awakens the world around you. So thank you. Sorry for the tough decisions you all have to make as you're sitting here on this board, but I appreciate you all taking the time to hear us all out. Thanks.
Next speaker is Megan Boyle.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. Good evening. My name is Megan Boyle, and I am a teacher at Furnace Woods. Out of my 30 years, I've only spent 4 years not in the Hendrick Hudson School District. I'm an alumni who has worked at the town of Portland Recreation and coached at the high school over the last 7 years. If you're looking for someone who has a well-rounded opinion, I think you found her. I'm not against change, but I am against doing it improperly. Monday night, I heard many educational terms and definitions thrown around. But what I have not heard is teacher input. As experienced professionals, we can tell you what the concerns are. What do the district lines look like and what are the implications? In the K2 model and the K5 model discussed Monday night by the board, the district lines were based on zip codes. What we know as professionals is the makeup of each zip code is very unique. We know as professionals the implication of these differences on educational outcomes. The second point is equity is not just based on race and ethnicity. Before grade banding, I was a traveling teacher, delivering instruction to the same grade level at both Frank G and Furnace Woods. Identical populations needed to be modified and prepared in different ways to meet the needs of each unique student. We chose programs with our district-wide population in mind. But when we have homeschools, we have concentrations of specific demographic communities in one area, creating different academic needs for each elementary school. This unique nature makes it impossible to be one head HUD in terms of programs, academic opportunities, and enrichment. Monday night, we heard the discussion of heterogeneity, and I would like to clarify. Class heterogeneity includes considerations of race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomics, academic ability, social emotional needs, and more. This is why it's crucial to include teachers. We can tell you our professional process in forming class placements for the following year. We do not treat students as numbers and consider the whole child. We would like you to do the same. We need to work collaboratively as a district. Collaboratively means including all parties in the conversation, especially those who live it day in and day out. This also means asking our professional opinions and valuing our experience, not giving us generic DEI training, which was suggested at the March 8th meeting. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the implementation of Princeton Plan was perfect. You can ask any administrator up here. I've been the first person to ask for more resources and think about how we can improve the STEM program to meet each student's needs. I feel like all stakeholders can agree. We want what is best for our students. To do that, you need to truly understand the district as a whole. I've heard the board ask for data. As a science teacher, I can tell you, data is not just percentages and numbers. It's the observational data and evidence. And there's a huge group of people here who can give that to you, and we're asking to be included in the conversation. Thank you.
Rogalski.
Good evening. My name is James Rogalski, and I am an English teacher at Hendrick Hudson High School and a member of the Hendrick Hudson Education Association. Around these parts, I'm also known as Rogo. First, I must apologize for any ineloquence. The life of an English teacher involves much talking. The following statement I am about to read is part of a letter sent to the Board of Education and Dr. Lauro 2 days ago by the HHCA. Attached to that letter are 180 signatures of tenured teachers in the district. Those names represent more than 90% of the tenured teachers in our school. My signature is proudly on that page. Dear members of the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education, the teachers of the Hendrick Hudson Education Association care greatly about the students in our schools. We are vital stakeholders in the district and must be included in any decision that impacts our students, our staff, and this community. It is imperative that we work in partnership when changes to our schools are being considered. The preamble of the collective bargaining agreement between the Hendrick Hudson School District Board of Education and the Hendrick Hudson Education Association clearly states that the mutual responsibility of both bodies to collaborate in regards to policy development in matters of mutual concern. The New York State Education Department's Commissioner's Regulation 100.11 also requires a district plan for their participation of parents and teachers in school-based planning and shared decision-making. The teachers of Hendrick Hudson Education Association must be included in the process of changes in our schools at all stages. Our collective educational knowledge, expertise, and experience should not be ignored. We look forward to open communication and collaboration between the Hendrick Hudson School District, Board of Education, and the HHCA moving forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Muir, and I'm a fourth grade teacher at Furnace Woods Elementary School. I'm also a Hen Hut graduate as well as a community member. I'm here tonight primarily as an educator to voice concerns I have about the state of our district. Many people are upset that their voices have not been heard in regards to major decisions being made. The same is true for teachers. Obviously, we all have the same goal: do what is best for the students. In order to accomplish that, students need teachers who feel appreciated, respected, and most importantly, heard. As an essential figure in this district, I feel as if teachers' voices and perspectives are not being valued or considered. Majority of our elementary staff, including four of the sixth grade levels, as well as 2 elementary administrators, have reached out to you directly with concerns about rushing away from our current model. Contrary to what is being said, and I can't stress this enough, this is not about teachers not wanting to move again. This is about wanting to do it right. Doing it right is an impossible task to ask in such a short period of time for all Hen Hut staff involved, including administrators, secretaries, custodians. Although moving is a large task, teachers would happily do so if it makes sense for this district as a whole and hits on the 3 major points: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know that many of my colleagues would agree that the model we are in now is the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive. We need transparency, and teachers need to be a part of the conversation. We need open dialogue where we can both ask and answer each other's questions. It's been stated by board members that it's not in their jurisdiction or it's an overreach to speak with teachers directly. And I guess my biggest question is why? Wouldn't that be one of the most important relationships to have in order for things to get done the right way? And what can we do to change this? I'm sure I speak for most of my colleagues when I say that it's sometimes painful to listen to board meetings and not be able to jump in and clarify misconceptions we are hearing. One example heard at Monday night's meeting was regarding cap size. I was hearing from board members that our current numbers are 18 or 19, and going to cap would increase this by only 1 or 2 students. In 4th grade, our class size this year is between 21 to 23 students. The cap in 4th grade is 27. As you can see, there is a very big difference in the numbers being thrown out in conversation amongst the board. You think overcrowding on buses is an issue? Again, speaking with teachers and getting facts is imperative in making major changes. The divide in this district is saddening. There are many of the same voices that are being heard at board meetings and on social media platforms alike. While each one has their own perspective and mostly valid reasons for feeling the way they do, I think that hearing from your educators who see firsthand, day in and day out, how this restructure has impacted our students is crucial. And I think that many would tell you what a positive change this has been. My hope is that before making any more hasty decisions, adequate time is given and proper data has been collected. And most importantly, all voices have been heard, not just the louder ones or ones sitting on this board. Thank you.
So this topic of elementary school or
They told me their communications, that was the topic.
okay, so in all fairness to the folks who are signed up for agenda items, our agenda includes the elementary reconfiguration. So there are folks who are on that proper list, and to talk about any agenda items now is unfair to those who have to wait. So I want to be clear that this is non-agenda. So if the topic is not on the agenda tonight, now is the time. I don't know if you want to.
He's speaking about Indian point.
I can't, I'm sorry.
He's gonna put that Indian point.
Wonderful. Okay.
First time I've ever said wonderful.
That was the conclusion of our first 15 minutes public comment section. So I would like to make a motion to extend another public comment period. 15 minutes. Second. Favor. Okay. Sorry about that.
Thank you. My name is Eric McBird. I'm in the district. I have 2 students. I'm here to talk about tonight something that has been very much absent from all the local, most recent and most contentious discussions about the distribution and the arrangement and organization of the district. And that is the fact that we have never seriously considered the possibility that EV may have to be closed for safety issues. Buchanan Plank Elementary is 4,000 feet from the reactor domes at Indian Point, which are going to be demolished by implosion. There is a high potential for dust contamination and radioactive contamination of that school and the surrounding environment.
And we are still moving forward with plans to reshuffle people around the district, reshuffle students and staff, without considering the possibility that that school may not be safe for use in the coming years. And if we do not begin planning for that eventuality now, that decision may get made for us. So on the 28th, there is a meeting for parents to learn about the school radiation monitoring plan. Why are we still projecting we're going to be sending kids to school in a location where we have to monitor the air for radiation contamination? And after Indian Point is finally demolished, that will still be a hazardous site that is closer to the school than just about any other site of its kind in the United States. Nowhere in the United States are public schools that close to an active site of that magnitude. So we're talking about decades of demolition, construction activities, and other hazardous events that we are going to have to start thinking beyond our month to month and year to year. What do we want our district to look like? How do we want to arrange our programs? Those are all fights worth having, but I feel like we are ignoring the elephant in the room, which is that we're going to need resources and we may have to relocate that school. There are federal and state officials who are willing to talk to Dr. Lauro and the district to find funds and resources to make those changes. There are numerous public health and medical professionals who have already stated that school should not remain open during demolition. So please, let's think about the risks of having students and staff at BV in this ongoing process. And let's really take a long-term look at what the district physically will and must look like in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kristen or.
Hi, I'm Kristen Irwin. I would like to echo that. You've heard me talk to each one of you individually about how important that is. And it was very disheartening that I saw some people over here laughing and looking at their phone when he was talking about the potential loss of life at our BV Elementary. I reviewed the list of UPK choices selected by our district. And I was shocked to find that there was violations at both Rising Star and Bessie's. And so I'd like to bring them to the attention of the board and the community. Rising Star's violations are a little less jarring, so I'll begin with that. There's 3 counts of inadequate background checks for staffs. There's 2 counts of inadequate number of qualified teachers on duty, 2 counts of inaccurate health records of personnel, and a count of inaccurate staffing assignments for the personnel. And Bessie's violations were a little bit more, there's 4 counts of child abuse and maltreatment at that location. There was a serious incident in which a child requires medical attention that was not reported. There's children left without competent supervision. Buildings were not in good repair. There was staff employed who did not promote the physical, intellectual, social, cultural, or emotional well-being of the children. There was physical intervention of greater force than permitted use. And there was also a violation cited where the methods of discipline, interaction, or toilet training, which frighten, demean, or humiliate a child was used. And so I was really upset to see that this is one of the choices that my child might be sent to next year, that anybody's child should be sent to, that state funding be sent to a facility that allows child abuse to take place, or staff with inadequate background checks. This was very I didn't get a chance to write it. It was just too upsetting. I just found these. So how do these centers fit our criteria? I know there are better choices available to us. I know that they're within our districts and they're within just several miles of this school. Are these educational settings? Are these certified teachers? And we're not doing right by our children if we allow our youngest learners to go to facilities such as this, where there's even the possibility of child abuse or demeaning use of force, humiliation with toilet training. I mean, it's just too much. We have to make better choices for the families of our district. And that includes closing BV Elementary with state funds by talking to the governor and the senators.
They told us we need to ask, and we're waiting for each and every one of you to ask to close BV, and they will give us the money. Thank you all.
A phone accidentally went off. Half of us worked at BV and we totally agree with you. So I apologize, but it was an accident and we were not laughing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is, I think we're done.
Right. All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything to pull this evening? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Have a second? All in favor? We do have some donations tonight that have been pulled from the agenda. And I will start with the first. I don't know if it's gonna match up with what's up there. Nope. All right, so we have a donation of $50 for the Barbara Katzenstein Scholarship Fund. The Office of Special Education has received a donation in the amount of $50 to be utilized to pay for partial summer camp funding for students with significant handicapping conditions. Okay, I'm gonna take a stab at this one. The Notrika family has donated the following to the district of Boko Star, karaoke, DVD player, microphones, and 24 discs, all valued at $859. Thank you, Notrika family. And the last donation is Mr. John Howe has donated the following tennis equipment totaling $1,650 for the Hendrick Hudson Athletic Department. And it's a whole bunch of things. Tennis launcher, or tennis ball launcher, slinger balls, Billie Jean King Eye coach machine, 8 tennis rackets, top spin pro training aid, approximately 300 tennis balls, various ball holders and such. That's wonderful. Thank you. So we have 3 donations. Can I have a motion to approve the donations? Can I have a second? All in favor? Oh, right. Right, so the next part of our meeting is the presentation and discussion. And yeah, presentation. Yep. We are going to be starting with our energy performance contract review. I think we have Mr. Merlini here tonight with Siemens to present to the board.
Everyone, members of the board. Tonight we have Siemens here. We're going to go over a little presentation regarding the energy performance contract, EPC, that we're looking to do in the district to help save some utility costs throughout. Tonight we have Kevin and we have Bill from Siemens to talk a little bit about it and do the presentation. It's pretty straightforward. We started this process a little while ago, and we're continuing it now. Looking to get everything up and running. Hopefully we can get our final audit done and get some design completed and get it up to state so we can start construction probably around the same time of the next year. And so we'll start off and introduce Bill and Terry to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm acting as the lead for the Siemens on the project. Yeah, Bill Tagning, and this is Kerry Krasinski, who's been the senior engineer in the project. So we did want to hit on a couple different things. We've had a long relationship with the district, a couple different projects. But at the same time, we want to, we're implementing some great things, infrastructure upgrades throughout the district, and Kerry's going to do that. And lastly, from a financial standpoint, just kind of go over some high numbers and how your building aid really does have an impact in the project. So with that, we've done 2 projects, one of which was done basically 10 years ago. It was a $2.5 million project. It was infrastructure upgrades throughout the entire district. And to date, I think we're at $2.8 million in savings from that work, which is great. And then recently in 2015, if you look at the schools, as far as the solar components, we were part of that project. We're generating just under a megawatt of power throughout the district. So it's a great savings in lieu of buying power from the street utility. But a key point of that is we were able to access it was a competitive grant of $600,000 that helped fund this project, which is kind of neat. So we're looking, really forward to this next stage. And just to kind of hit on some high level, what is performance contracting again? It's a vehicle for you to upgrade your infrastructure without using any capital cost. There's no upfront fees at all. All the savings are funding all the improvements. But what we're doing here is, there's aging technology, there's aging infrastructure, systems aren't functioning the way they should be. So we're addressing a lot of areas within the district to improve efficiency and improve operations of the buildings. But, one of the things is that, as I said, savings fund the project, and that's on an annual basis. And Siemens guarantees that on an annual basis back to the district. So like the first phase, right now, that one, we're at $2.8 million in savings, and I'll hit on some numbers later. But there's a significant impact as far as the cash flow for the district with the project. And one other point is, you get building aid, for the project. And right now, the aid rate that the district gets is 32.3%. And there's an opportunity for the district to get an additional 10% building aid, which relates to an extra $500,000 back to the district, which is pretty significant. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Karen. She'll hit on some high points.
Thanks, Bill. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the improvement measures that are going to be included in this project. As you can see, it's a pretty comprehensive approach. On the top of this graph is the various schools and the administration building and the bus garage. And down the first column are the different measures, whether it's lighting, controls, HVAC systems. And as you could see, they're being implemented almost across the board wherever it seemed feasible for those measures to be included. I know one of the big measure is lighting. But there's over 6,700 fixtures that are going to be retrofitted. This includes new lighting for the high school gymnasium and new fixtures for the middle school classrooms. And this will include operational savings as well as energy savings for the district. And here's just an example of the school classroom at the Blue Mountain Middle School in the original portion of the building. It has kind of these outdated yellowish fixtures. And with our team, we're proposing new LED panel lights shown here, which can be customizable for light levels and warmth of color. We'll gladly work with the teachers and the board to ensure the lighting is appropriate for the classroom.
Carrie, before you continue, I think it's important that you mention that we're going to work with the teachers, the rest of the people that are in the classroom, that are going to be the classrooms for them to really try the lights and get the lights that they really feel is better for the students to learn.
Right, absolutely. We'll even do like a mock type classroom, so teachers and students and administration can see what the light will look like, at desk level, standing, during presentation, things like that. And we'll work hand in hand with the district to ensure that.
I have a question. Isn't there a lot of scientific research around the type of light that you use in a studying environment? In other words, you might want to have blue light filters, you might want to have a certain color temperature, rather than just asking, does this feel like the right color temperature and brightness?
I would absolutely, I'm not 100% familiar with that, but we use the SED standards for the state, the latest professional recommendations, and anything of that nature would be covered in our proposal for it.
Thank you.
And to continue with lighting, this is actually for the field lighting at the high school for the track and the football field. These are really new, kind of state-of-the-art LED fixtures that would replace the existing ones that are there. You could just see very quickly for reference that we did a lighting audit to ensure constant lighting is being met throughout the area. And these fixtures would have kind of the latest controls available, instant on. They won't have that warm-up period that sometimes the older fixtures have. And there'll be various control options, remote controllability from, you know, tablets and such like that. So it's a really great thing to be included in the project. And kind of getting on the more technical side, there's also some HVAC replacements that we've been looking at throughout the district. Some miscellaneous units at these three schools, FD Lindsay, Furnace Woods, and the high school. Just basically the most inefficient units that are due for an upgrade, we would be including in our project. And this is for the building management system. What's currently here is fairly antiquated and not giving the full benefit of a BMS system to the staff handling the buildings and the facilities. So incorporating the newer, highest version of this BMS will really help improve building operation conditions, alerting of any alarms, uncomfortable conditions can all be met. And as a part of incorporating the new web-based platform for the BMS system, we'll also be addressing some ongoing maintenance and operational issues. This will include, right now there's some pneumatic systems for controls throughout the buildings, and they will be brought on to the digital controls. So the facilities team can see more of the schools in real time to address any issues. There will also be control strategies to regulate outdoor ventilation and how systems start in the mornings to ensure the greatest efficiency is being met, but also maintaining, ventilation requirements and the proper conditions. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a web-based platform, so it could be accessed from anyone that has the credentials from their phone or tablet, computer, which will really make maintaining the buildings a more feasible, easy situation. This is just an example of one of the upgraded graphics that would be included. And here is just a list of areas that we identified are having either meal control or aren't on the digital control. They're still pneumatic. So part of this process, we will also be addressing these miscellaneous areas. And then just to round out what the project will include, there's also going to be building envelope improvements, which includes door weather stripping, sealing any wall cracks, any crack that isn't supposed to be there, we will address and seal to promote energy savings. The destratification fans are in cafeterias, gymnasiums, the room at the high school, just to help circulate the air, to improve comfort and reduce heating consumption. And then we also looked at, the walk-in coolers and freezers in your kitchens to not overuse energy in maintaining the proper temperatures for food. And finally, the HVAC armor is kind of a neat technology that helps bring cooling coils back to their manufacturer kind of new efficiencies and ratings. It will improve both capacity and the efficiency. So now I'll hand it back to Bill to talk about the finances of the job.
Thank you. Yeah, real comprehensive approach as far as through, the entire district, as far as all the improvements that we're making. And as I said in the beginning, what funds everything is the savings that are being generated. And what I wanted to show here is just kind of from a high level standpoint, total utility spent within the district is $1 million. So we're going to really attack that hard. And, we're showing just under $300,000 a year in savings that we can generate, energy and operational. And at the same time, from the project size, all the different work that we're doing in each of the buildings, the size of the project was 4.6 that we identified. Right, so that's all funded through the savings. And like I said before, there is no capital or upfront costs that's associated with just utilizing your different operating budget. The savings funds the program. So, but one of the things that I had mentioned in the beginning was, what building aid does to the component of the district in relation to cash flow. So right now your building aid is 32.3%. Which generates $1.6 million in building aid. And building aid is not a lump sum amount, it's paid out over 15 years. But if the district elected to put out a vote to get the additional 10%, that generates over $500,000 in building aid from the state. So, and if you look at that over an 18-year period, it generates, I have $2.5 million of net positive cash flow back to the district. So pretty significant. If you decided not to do the 10%, obviously you subtract the 525 from that amount, and you're at, just a little bit over $2 million in net positive cash flow. So, building aid does play a good role. And if you can get an additional 10%, I say go for it. It's up to you guys. With that, I'll open it up if you have any questions.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
First one is, I know we spoke about the lighting upgrades at the field. I know a complaint or possible concern would be the lighting for the surrounding neighborhoods. So I know we spoke about that. I just wanted to make sure that you touched upon that so that the community understood.
Right, excuse me, we circled back with our lighting team that we're working with on the field lighting. If the LED lighting by nature will appear brighter, but the lights will be facing down, so there really won't be that outpouring of light pollution. And again, we have plenty of examples of where this technology has been installed, and would be happy to share that with you to also ensure that those concerns are being met.
And then the other one is, are you working with an architect on any of these upgrades?
Yeah, so it looks like, Phillips Engineering does some good work within the district. And so we're going to utilize their services, from an outside standpoint. So we did talk about, certain design criteria, as far as lighting and everything like that. So they're going to play a role in that, and they're part of the SED submission as far as plans and specifications for the gym. Yeah.
So I've got two questions and kind of one fun one. So one thing I have, Anthony, is maybe more for you, that if we were to have a SaaS solution, which is what we're talking about here for managing our HVAC systems remotely, that is how most vendors and companies get hacked, is through third-party SaaS solutions. So I would ask that you work very closely with Benita to make sure that we do due diligence on the security controls and what they have in place to make sure that as she's out rolling out the NIST framework, that this be included in part of that evaluation. So that's number one. Secondly, I didn't see anything about PV upgrades. So, I know we've had the panels out there for a while. They probably need a good cleaning. The technology has changed quite a bit. Is there anything in there around PV upgrades?
Well, we didn't have anything as far as
What's PV? Sorry.
Photovoltaic solar panels.
for solar. For solar. So like right now, and I think, and you can attest, it seems like some of the elementary schools, almost at you know, as you want to carbon footprint as far as the utility use versus the generation. But what we're looking to do right now, you know, based on some input that we've gotten from the district, is to look at maybe battery storage. So we're evaluating that right now to see possibly, it looks like the better candidates would be the high school and maybe the middle school. So we're looking at that right now as far as.
For off-grid usage or for backup during outages?
It would be for more or less, you would set it up in a way where you would start storing the batteries, right? During off-peak periods, so the charges that you're gonna get from the utility are gonna be less. And during the day, you're gonna be running your solar, but at the same time, manage that with your battery storage too as well.
So it's off-grid versus net metering.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last one I have is just a little more fun. If you're gonna put in a new lighting system for the field, consider lighting systems that can be synchronized and maybe synchronized to music. That could be a lot of fun.
Well, you know, it's interesting to say that. It's very kind of touched on that. We didn't really spend a lot of time. But the control system for the field lighting has a lot of features and functions to it. So even like, you know, say if you score a touchdown, you know, you can have them strobe. Or if you're introducing the team, right, you can just have it focused into the middle of the field or wherever. So there's a lot of flexibility that you can do, but I guess that's a good one. As far as how using
That's great. And so the angle is variable for the lights too?
Yeah, well, what we want to do is push it all down to the field, like what I said, you know, so to minimize any weight pollution. So more fields, more lighting is went down towards the field than what you have now. But as we laid out in that one graphic, you know, we kind of did a whole lighting design for the field.
Okay, so you're looking at the angle of light dispersion. In
Right,
relation
so
to-
there's no like shaded areas. And
That's great. Because I can imagine, you know, anybody might have a view of the field, even though it's not angled at them, it could be very distracting if you're sitting in your living room trying to watch TV and, you know, the lights are kind of.
Yeah, and another feature is they're dim too, so you can run them at 25, 50, 75%, so you don't have a full light night on the weekend. People out there, you know, just gonna walk their dog with, they're down on the track, and, you know, they're going for a walk. That's fun.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This looks amazing. I want an energy performance contract for my house. I just have one question about the timeline. So you referenced how we are gonna put this on the May vote, but how does that, maybe for Anthony, like, how does the timing work? Like, when will we start to see the improvements in our buildings?
I'll speak
Okay.
to Anthony.
Go for it.
But I mean, so where we are right now, we've done the final audit and we're ready to start with our detailed design. So these are construction set drawings that we bring up to SCD. So they do the review, they do their due diligence code review and stuff like that. So we're looking at hopefully an approval, you know, sometime in the fall with a 12-month installation period.
Okay.
Yeah.
One nice thing about going to energy performance contract is, with Siemens is we don't have to go out to bid. So we lose that out of there too. So as soon as everything's approved and we have our submittals in, and we approve the design and we approve the measures that they're going to partake in, and we have to have obviously time to get into the building. The last energy performance contract, we did a lot of work off shift. So we did a lot of work second shift. So guys came in, replaced a lot of the bulbs, a lot of the lighting fixtures and things like that second shift. So it didn't have to be necessarily done during the summer. And since they're doing it, we don't have to do a bid, we don't have to find a contractor willing to work second shift. It's all part of this project, all part of this, so we can hit the ground running right away. So if we get approval in December, we don't have to wait till the summer to start that project, we can go right away.
Great, thank you.
I have a question about the vote. Can you share with me a little bit about what it takes to get this? It seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, so I mean, these projects can be implemented, we're ready, so we can implement them without that extra 10%. But some districts, you know, hey, if we did the extra 10%, then you put them, you know, it's like, we're gonna do the project. But here's the opportunity to get an extra 10% for the project. So like.
So Jeremy, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a separate proposition on the May budget proposition to say that will say something like if you approve this proposition, there will be an extra 10%. The state aid on this project. If you don't approve it, we're still going to go through the project, but you will have the community members will have to pay this extra 10%.
It's free money.
There's no sense not, there's no risk. Just putting it up, and it makes no sense to not. Yeah. Makes no sense not to do it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That's good. Yes, thank you.
Well, my number is there on the presentation, so if you have questions, feel free.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, we're holding us.
Well, unless you want to vote on their proposition. Oh, wait, yeah, theirs is in there.
On there, sure. I just,
So you want to do it all in one fell swoop.
no, we can, let's,
Well, theirs is with the bunch print.
what? You said?
The proposition is together, the EPC and the transportation. So you might want to read it.
Right. Now we're moving over to our superintendent's report.
Thank you. I know what we're trying to do this evening, and you received a couple of packets from me. There was a revised one today to include the transportation costs, because we changed our thinking about how to do that, and so we updated it. I want to make sure everybody has the revised copy in front of them. So what we are looking at right now are 3 models that we were asked to consider for Monday evening. And in the analysis in the documents that you received, we have updated information that you requested concerning enrollment data with ethnicity, economically disadvantaged data by school and by grade level, the class size and sections to the current Board of Ed policy, which raised them from when you had COVID. When COVID hit, you had lowered them, and now we're going back to the policy. The other classroom needs are also indicated there. So not only on the list of each of the models is a breakout of general ed classes, but there are also all of the special programs and special education programs. What I mean is art, music, library, etc. And then there are financials, which include general teaching staff, special education, specials, and transportation. And any of the net changes or savings are listed as additional costs. So when you look at the models, they're on the last one on the financials is either a net increase or a decrease in costs from one year to the next in terms of comparing last year's or current year to what the projection would be next year. When examining Plan C, the original K-5 model, you had asked for possible new boundaries based on bus routes. Always trying to equalize the length of time on the bus route and the distance from the farthest point to the school. So in keeping with our Title VI, and I remind the board again, we're allowed to alter lines to deal with either high traffic or, so it's not just distance, it's also time. And what we've kind of said is as a goal would be to have our buses no longer than say 25 minutes for a ride, and to have no more than say 50 students in a bus. And then we have to concern ourselves with the travel time, throughout the district. When we recently did a survey, we realized that obviously the daytime morning, when it's lighter, has a different travel time than the evening where more traffic is around. And so it's slower getting people home. So we try to look at both of those in terms of trying to come up with the best possible bus routes. In summary, you're going to see a statement that either speaks to the plan that costs more or a plan that costs less than the previous year. And then some of the plans do better at equalizing the distribution of economically disadvantaged students across the schools than other plans. And so that information is there, so you can make those comparisons. Also, Older remaining models allow assigning students to fit the number of general education classrooms and special programs accommodated as well. So in an earlier discussion, we eliminated some of the models that were given to us because we were already over capacity. And even if we adjusted some of the boundaries, we still had capacity issues. Repeat. Yeah, so all of the models that we had include things like I said before, all the general ed, the specials and so on, or all the current models that we're dealing with all can be accommodated in the models that we gave you in the school breakdowns for building. And no model looks at any additional costs. So what we did was we strictly restricted our, again, let me say what I mean, and then I can go back. For example, repairs and maintenance are going to be there regardless. And so we have to do those. So it's not maybe one building may cost more to do certain something. We stripped that away and tried to look at the costs that were the same in terms of how do we compare them. So we looked at things like the cost of in the models of what I indicated earlier, the staffing and so on. We eliminated any reductions, so we kept things as they were. So we did not include any discussion on our teaching assistants, which we can have at a later date in the budget presentation, but that's not part of this discussion. And final budget considerations will affect the new budget under development by the board, which we will adopt, which will hopefully will adopt on April 12th. It's the last day you can do it, so it will be on April 12th. And I think that it's important to state publicly, because I've gotten several phone calls, board hadn't made any decision regarding tax levies, tax rates, or any of that. We haven't even settled on a budget. We have a goal in mind, and we're trying to stick to the goal. And part of that process is the discussion that we're having tonight regarding which of the models that you're going to choose, because they may affect it either up or down. Either way, we know what the target is, and we're going to try to offset that. And our discussions following this meeting up through April 12th will be all around the budget. And once we get a decision in terms of what we're doing at the elementary level. And then the other piece, I know there were questions about BV and closing it. And so in any of the models, we're not closing BV because, as we stated earlier, in order to do that, it does take a lot of planning. And if there's state money and federal money, we certainly are going to look at those things. But you're talking long range, as we just were discussing with the present model of the improvement plan here with the eating, it goes to state ed. And that is like you're at home, it's like bringing it to the town and asking it zoning and all the things and all the steps and all the processes and approvals of whatever those plans are. When you go to a building, I only know from past experience from inception of the concept of bringing something forth to the community, going through the architectural design of it, submitting the plans, approval of the plans, and finally getting a budget. And then building the building, it's a 5 to 6 year cycle. And sometimes state ed is so far behind that could be bumped out another year or two, depending on what the volume is up there and their staffing. So if they are particularly ill-equipped to handle a particular year, you just get put on the list as they come in, they get stamped in, and that's how they're looked at. So it's a long process, and it's not something that we can do overnight. So I leave your discussion tonight and hope that the board will make some decision, because we're also up against a number of things that you need to be aware of. I mentioned April 12th as the deadline for adoption of a budget. You obviously want to know what's in the budget in terms of what kind of elementary program are we going to put in there, and what are the costs associated with it, what are the busing and transportation costs. And in addition to that, we have contractual obligations in terms of notifying staff where they will be and how they will be, relocated. I know we've talked about that. And I just want to reiterate again that in our planning, if we do anything, I think there's consensus at the table here that we don't want to do it the way we did it last year, and that for the teachers, particularly the teachers involved, we'll hire a moving company, we'll have the appropriate number of boxes, whatever your needs might be. And so that's just being considered in the process of what we're doing. We're not going to be doing it internally if we do anything at all. So with that, I leave it up to the board to ask questions, and I could highlight them for you. So just to reiterate what the models were, Plan A was the current model, and that was with BB being 2-3, FGL being pre-K, K1, and Furnace Woods being 4-5. That's our current model, as we call it, the Princeton plan. Plan B was the plan that had two pre-K 2 buildings, so pre-K K2 buildings, K1, 2 buildings. So that was the one where we tried to get a longer period of time before we moved early childhood years. So if we did it that way, and if somebody was there with pre-K all the way to grade 2, they would be in the building for 4 years. Then they would move on to a second building. Our Furnace Woods building would be the one which would be 3, 4, 5. And I'm sorry, FGL, and I see that there's an error here. So that's my mistake. And so the two buildings, BV and Furnace Woods, would be our 2 elementary programs, the pre-K programs through grade 2, and then centrally located is FGL, and we got that one earmarked as 3 through 5. And then Plan C has the original model, which goes back to the 3 pre-K to 5 schools. So originally they were K5, we still want to put 1 pre-K program at each of those buildings. So that would change the model somewhat from the original in that we now have a pre-K program. And then on the charts, I'll just highlight, one of the things you asked for, and it's just a page of information just to mention, was the teaching assistants and their assignments. So that there's nothing being proposed here other than informational to give you. Plan A, going back to it, the charts there again on ethnicity, class size and sections. The economically disadvantaged chart is in there as well. The breakdown of the number of classrooms, and then on the bottom, the totals, each of those are within what we have as arrangements for the buildings. In other words, none of the 3 proposals we have now have any overages. We're not dealing with anything. We have our art, we have our music, they're all outlined for you, how many rooms were being used. And we worked with our principals and our central office staff in terms of making sure what could be tweaked. There's a current room being used for one thing may get changed into another, to go to the larger rooms for general ed classes and the smaller rooms for specials and things of that nature. For example, if we were doing, I don't know, pick something, the ABC classes are not the same as a big full classroom and so on. And then on the bottom of the financials, in the first one, the financials include reductions of class sections, and that was due to the general ed moving to the class caps that we had spoken about. And there were savings there of about almost $400,000. And then the transportation costs, which are the cost of bringing in 2 new buses. We spoke about that at the meeting when Liz had presented, our bus supervisor, had presented the bus plan for what would be included in the budget. We always speak of the 2 replacement buses, so that's not included in the cost. The 2 replacement buses are part of the proposition to be taking up tonight. And that would be put up there for both, and that's normal replacement cycle. So this is additional. These would be 2 newer buses that would deal with the change in the mileage and so on that we have to implement the plan. We already know that had caused some issues this year. And what we're trying to do is correct it completely to not have 55-minute or 40-minute runs, but to keep those runs down to say 25, 30 minutes. I say that we always target the 25. I'm going to say 25, 30 because of traffic. Again, one way we can probably do it, and then on the return, we don't know about traffic patterns, and so it changes it somewhat. And then keeping it to no more than 50 on a bus, no packing people into 60, if not less than that. We also added repairs, mileage, and then we had the 2 drivers that we indicated that was shared. Remember that situation earlier when that report was given, because our chauffeurs drive and then they are also custodial during the day in between hours. And so there's, in the first model, there is a savings of about $250,000. In Plan B, which is the 2 pre-K 1-2 building, pre-K K1-2 building, I keep saying that incorrectly, at BV and at Furnace Woods, that outline also has the enrollment data. And again, you can see the distribution of students. Please note again that we try to keep the 2 smaller buildings that the enrollments are like slightly under 300 in this case. And the FGL building, the larger building, has a larger number of students in it because it can handle that. Again, we're not comparing three block buildings of equal size. I didn't need to tell you that, but that's the issue that we keep having. The three buildings are different sizes and we're trying to accommodate that. We also know there are stairs in the FGL building versus the other two buildings that are laid out differently on one floor. Again, what kinds of students we put in there, what grade levels, et cetera. And then again, you've always asked, so the economically disadvantaged students and the distribution of how they fall, with this particular model. Again, bringing class sizes up and to the policy, they're outlined there in a number of sections. Again, I want to reiterate that we have art and music and we have reading in place. We have our special ed programs. I didn't really mention that earlier, but when we first spoke about doing it, I had asked, Liz had done it with replicating it and heard astronomical numbers. And then we came down to reality. Lisa, I'm sorry. Liz is the bus, I'm sorry. I know Lisa. No, we weren't. I said it wrong. And then when we looked at special ed, we sat down and we looked at the practical way of distributing them. We did not, and none of the plans have all of special ed in one building. Because I did get a few phone calls today thinking that was the model. No, those were things that were suggested and they were put aside and we're not going to look at that model at all. So this model continues having them distributed over the three buildings. And then last but not least is the savings here. When we wound up doing that, we wound up with a need for a music teacher. And I know that the music department had presented the need for that. We added that back in. The addition of a consultant teacher, because under the new model and distributing, we felt that there was a need to add that in the area of special ed. And then the reduction of one teaching section, again, going back to the policy. So those are pluses and minuses on the general ed side and special ed side, and then there's transportation. And the transportation mirrors the last one I just described to you, which is the two buses, the mileage, the repair, and the two drivers. So both of those models need to have the busing altered in order to accommodate the bus routes. In that particular case, by the time we look at pluses and minuses, the net cost to implement that program is $244,000 or $245,000. The map is there for your use as well. And the last model are the three pre-K to 5 schools, which I mentioned earlier was the original model that you had without the pre-K. Now we have pre-K in there. We can accommodate those sections as you list them on the bottom. You can see the breakout of the sections. You can see our maximum number of classrooms, and then the bottom are the totals that we're using. We're well under at BV. We're well under at FGL, and we're well under at Furnace Woods. So it is not an issue in this plan either. And then on the last page, again, I'm reiterating what I said earlier. We spread the special ed across. We've got all art, all music, all of those kind of programs are accommodated in the breakdown. And the bottom of that one, we have just the general ed. We were adding one classroom teacher and one music teacher, and there's no change in the transportation. And so in that particular one, we have a net cost of about $195,000 to implement that program. And I think that is the end of it. Let's see. Did I miss that one? All right, see if I can do that again. My savings on the transportation. Well,
3, right?
the 3 on the
Local transport, it's somewhere between 3 and 4, so.
3 400.
These speaking, used to 3, right?
Is that, you want to just say what you just said? You know it better than I do.
The difference between last year's transportation and this one would be the same, so actually it would be like savings of about between 300,000 and 400,000, and I don't know the exact number now, so to make it simple, say 300,000. Also, very little differential between the current model and the 2-3, the model number 2, is that in transportation, the current model will be about $20,000 to $30,000 more, because you are taking from every part of the district to the center. Here you're only doing it for the 3, 4, 5. But the difference is meaningful to what we're talking about. We might want to say $20,000, and that's what we discussed in the past. But I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of it.
So just summarizing, we went up on the class size caps, returning policy to the original. I attached a copy of the policy in the back. It's from the policy book, so it's there for your use and reference. Again, for those in the public, kindergarten goes 22, grade 1, 20, grade 2, 22, grade 3, 22, grade 4 through 6 can go to 26. And not that we hit all of those, but that's what we had done to move it on. My second bullet was in order to ensure that students have access to special education, both pre-K building, 2 buildings, the classes were placed and addressed, and programming was equally placed, equally placed, I'm sorry. What we wanted to do is maintain special ed presence in all of the buildings. And then as I said, just last thing was the transportation, and note that the original model was the K-12 that changed what I said none, but we have that, it was an alteration, it was about $300,000, so that's the change.
So before we open, I have one question and then one first statement. I think for everyone following along in the audience and at home, to eliminate the conversation of where we were and where we are, this is all assuming this year's expense at 0 and it's plus and minus from there. So that's not about what we saved to get from where we were to where we are. To eliminate all of that conversation, these numbers are assuming that this model that we are in today, it's a plus or a minus from here. It has nothing to do with looking backwards to yesteryear. The second piece, Ali just asked me to call that out, so I wanted to make sure it was clear, so people following home are like, wait, what the heck? I thought it was. Let's move forward and we can go over what.
For the sake of decision making
Yeah,
tonight, it's very helpful to think of this as a year 0, and then we can.
I have one question, and I don't know if it's for Dr. Laura, Enrique, or something Liz has to get back to us on. If we split the custodial drivers 50-50, right, from Anthony's department and Liz's department. But that's salary, right? So basically 2 drivers is equal to 1 salary at plus or minus 70,000. I don't believe this number accounts for their benefits, payroll taxes, or retirement, right?
What she gave me originally, and what we did was cut the share out of what the driver is custodial, so it was a much larger number, and then was it 40%, 60%? Can we get that? I don't remember what it was.
It is the salary plus, and again, I don't have the exact numbers, but ERS is going to be about 13%, 7.65% of Social Security. And since we don't know what the new drivers' health insurance is, I always take into account when I don't know an average, and I'd say that their health insurance would be $18,000, because it could be as low as 1,650, which is the buyout, but it can be as high as 30,000 if they have a family. So just to break it in the middle, since we need to hire them and we don't know their family situation, I always say 15,000.
I think what Jeremy's getting at, I want to just, that's not a salary, and that's times 2. That's not 2 salaries. It's what it represents is the driver portion of the driver custodian salary with all the benefits.
So
And
I
then
think that
2
number
of
needs
them.
to be closer to 100. The 70 probably needs to reflect 100.
Okay.
So think about it, right? Just at 50-50, right? It's $35,000 each. So it's almost like calling it one full employee.
Yeah,
right.
no, I just, and before we go there, I just want to say, so there's a ratio of 60% custodial, I think, and 40 drive, or is it the other way around?
No, the other way.
Other way. So this represents 2 people of 60% of salary and benefits.
But I don't think
And
that's
then-
right. Is that right? Because that would mean, what would
She
their,
gave me like 100 and, well, doubling that is what she gave me, about 141,000 is what she said. And that's how, well, no, it's more than I'm sorry, so it was 60%.
So,
I don't know where my note page. It's right here probably.
so their salary is about
Yeah, I do have it.
$69,000 of a new custodial driver, one person. So times 0.6, which is the transportation, that would be 41,400. I'm very close to the number. I don't want. So say, and then to this number, you need to add, how much did we say? 13, about 21% between Social Security and ERS. And there's 50,000 plus 15,000 divided, I'm sorry, that's divided by 2 plus 57,594 times 2. It would be around 115, but to make it simple, make it 105.
So 30,000 more than the number listed here for the additional
Yes.
drug for the driver.
Yes,
So it should just call it 100K.
yeah, to make it simple. You understand, Erica?
Yep.
So the savings becomes, so just to quickly go through it, the savings, if that's the accurate number, becomes 215 for option A is the savings, right? The additional expense becomes 260 for option B, and the additional savings becomes 130 for option C. Anyone want to change? Sure, so I think the adjustment there makes 215 as the total, I'm rounding here, right? 215 as the additional net savings for option A. 260 as the additional expense for option B. And a savings of 130,000 for option C.
Okay, done.
Just one at a time, I think we're gonna have the same question.
I questioned the 60-40, but I won't even get into that, to be honest, but we had agreed that we were gonna hire these people regardless of which model we went to, because Anthony needed four more custodians, he needed additional custodians, and it was in our benefit for the increased cost to have them be custodians and drivers, no matter which model we were in, because it would only help us, because we often have shortages on drivers. I'm not really sure this is really a cost at all. I think we would have amendments.
So then it would be just the elimination of the 2 buses, Jen, so then in
I
that,
think it's just the buses,
and
not the drivers. I think the drivers just come off, because we said we
We were
would need
hiring,
them.
yeah, they were in our budget.
and I think the example on the split, why it goes 60 to transportation is because you get additional state aid.
And that's fine. But it's her. That's
Still a wash.
yeah, I mean, that's
Because
my
they're providing
suggestion.
more time.
Was that?
They are providing more time.
Yeah, but the cost doesn't matter which plan you're in, because you're still
Hiring.
hiring them no matter what. So it becomes a wash, it should be eliminated from the
Yeah.
cost of it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was okay.
Because under option C, we're still hiring them anyway, so it's a wash.
I thought Anthony said he was splitting them, so one is a wash, he would need anyway, or maybe I didn't hear that. I thought he was splitting, so we were taking them when he was doing the budget presentation and putting them in different budgets. Liz had one in a budget when they
They
were.
looked at 4 half, 2 and 2, 2 and 2, but they were half people, 4 half people.
But we were having them regardless of what elementary school plan they went to. So these aren't additionals, but they already presented. Is what I'm saying. These were already included in their budgets, no matter which.
In their
model.
budget ask.
Got it.
So
It was an ask,
we're
right?
60% people, right? So it's 2.4 people. Is that?
Just doesn't-
Because
These
it's
are
not
both
50-50. But it doesn't matter because it's a wash.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they just
I
need to
just-
be eliminated.
Rather than arguments, rather than.
Right, we don't need to get into the semantics.
Right.
Wash.
I just wanna, if we're good on transportation, I think the first, and this is not about cost, I just wanna make it clear. The first model, Plan A, there was still an ask for a music teacher. I know it's not to be determined yet, but I don't want to just blow past it because our team of music staff asked for it, so it is acknowledged and it is something that is on my radar. I know B and C call for that, but they asked for it in A as well, so everyone should keep that in their mind.
So I see, it's green. She's got to, I wonder if you just forgot to carry it over.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
There, yeah, no, it's up here, and it may not be down here.
I see plan C.
Yeah.
So I have, sorry if I ask one question about plan C. So in plan C for grade 4, it looks like we have an issue with FWS that it's shaded. So has the split been accounted for in the overall cost?
No, that hasn't been split yet.
Okay,
And
right.
so we go back to your policy and the question. So if it's at 28 and it's one section and it's one above, the choice comes back to the superintendent about either the TA or break the section.
Isn't 26 our cap?
It's
26 is our cap. So I see 2,
plus 1, so that's 20, yeah.
right? So I see 2.
Yeah, 26
Grade
plus
4,
1.
and then grade 5 has 27.
That's
Doesn't that
plus
be
1.
split too?
And that's
So
the
we have
few
2
that we
split.
had as the questionable. The problem is as pluses and minuses occur, so rather than putting it on there, we just simply said, let's wait, see when the enrollment comes back in. Did somebody leave and somebody come in, or did they just leave and it goes down?
But aren't we assuming that this is just gonna be, like, don't we have to work on these numbers?
Yes,
Don't
but we have contingency in the budget anyway. Cover that, it's not, we would always, there's always contingency in the budget.
But then when we come to the overall cost analysis for this model, wouldn't that have to be 2 teachers higher?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
just
if you want to put them in, you can.
3 teachers higher.
3 teachers higher, so we're talking
If you
about.
want to do the one here, add one for this to split,
Yeah,
and then it's 2 14s, you see, that's what happens with that model.
so adding 3 teachers to the 195 net cost would be how much?
Well, no, it's one saving, right? You gotta add the 300 savings in us.
300, what, this is for the,
It's
transportation,
just adding,
Yeah, he's talking still about the busing, the year 0 busing.
like, we're at year 0 for busing. So
Right,
that
so you
means- that means it's the cost as it is right now.
So you recapture your 300
That'd
spend,
be negative.
which puts you at a negative 300 on trans, which puts your cost at a net 100, net 100 savings, plus your cost of potential teachers.
When they did this analysis for the transportation, did they do it from scratch or like how was this no changes? But the only reason I'm asking, Jeremy, is that I want to know if they did it baseline and they said, okay, this is what it's going to be, then maybe there isn't the savings. Maybe it's not reducing like that. I just want to know what the
If you
cost is.
go from today's routes and you go back to last year's routes, there's a big.
But it's not last year's rack because there's a different model, right?
No, there's no redistricting.
Oh, it assumes no.
Yeah, that's on the page, whatever it says. It's on there, that it's no redistricting.
Okay, so let's say it's 300,000, so we have the 300,000 plus the 3 teachers, so 300 in savings. Which would get us to a net savings of 100,
Right.
but then we have 3 additional
Right.
teachers that we need to add.
Potentially.
Which
We
is
use
what it
97.
costs for 3 teachers.
97,
So
721.
let's say
That
300,000,
teacher,
but then
that's
you're still back at a net cost of 200,000.
exactly.
So right back to where we were,
Plan
okay.
C.
So
Yeah.
plan
Correct.
C, we're still at $200,000
All 3 of
even
those
with
split.
transportation, so we still get to the same. spot.
And that's hiring 3 general ed teachers.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah, because that's split.
Because of the splits.
And then I have one question, just to re-clarify, on the music for Plan A. It shows 3 music teachers on the top,
It does,
but it doesn't show adding the music teacher in the cost.
and that's why I don't know what the reason.
So that makes that 144,
Be another one.
Yes,
right? Not 244.
well, but then you take the drivers off, so it's almost. Yeah, I did the same thing and I was like, you know, I don't want 20 down.
But I think, forget the money even. I think it's important for the music
Yeah.
department to understand that there's
We're gonna get.
conversation
It has-
about.
Or how it's-
They ask.
Only at a teacher.
We took the request very seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so for the, so we know what. Special ed looks in the current model. I think we somewhat know what it looks like if we went back. Can you explain in detail? I look at Lisa, but. What is it? What is ICT and skills? Explain it a little more. Our students in ICT classes.
being moved between their new childhood schools into Plan B. Yes,
Plan B.
yes.
What, is that a yes or a no? Are we moving?
I don't know what the question. Tell me what you want to know.
So if I live in the BB district and I am an ICT student in any grade, is there an ICT class available at all grades in BB?
No. Well, I'm sorry, yes, in the second model, yes, there's one in each classroom, but to be honest with you, if I'm at 12 in this one and I'm at 5 in this one, they're gonna have to go to that one, whether that's in homeschool or not. Because there is no availability for me to just, unless you want me to start adding teachers, I can do that. That's why I gave you the plan that I was asked to replicate. No, I just said the ICT. I said if there's 12 in this ICT and there's 4 in this one, I can't put kids in this class or split this because I have 4 over here. Okay. I mean, if you want to give me staffing, I will. But that's why I gave you that report last week. If you want to have the equity that we have now, it would be that we would have to spend $1 point whatever million at this rate.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that, is it equity or equality? I think we're talking about
Well-
equality if we just.
It could be equality, it could also be equity, so. Fine then, right?
Okay.
Any other questions? Discussion? Set, I see you. Hold on, Stephanie is gonna go.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
All you.
No, go.
Okay, I just wanted to summarize my understanding, if I'm right on here. So for Plan A, we would have a net savings of 214,000, 215,000? 215. Okay, for Plan B, we would have a net cost of 244, is that still correct? What's the number there?
That costs 175.
Okay, net cost of 175. Okay, and for Plan C, with the special, without the special ed equity, right?
You asked me about Plan B, not Plan C, right? We did, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for Plan C what does special ed look like in Plan C then?
It goes back to the original rotation of years. So kids would be moved through the the 2 element, no, the 3, that's right, this is K-5, through all 3 of them.
So exactly where we were before. We had the challenges before and no changes to that. And then to go back to that model, that would cost us, I think we came to $200,000 again, right?
That's about how.
Right. Okay, so the differential between staying where we are, going to the old model is 250 minus 200, $450,000, almost 1% in tax. Correct? That would be going from Plan A to Plan C. Plan A to Plan B, the swing would be from $214,000 to 175, so about $400,000.
Right.
Right, somewhere around $400,000 swing, increase in cost to go to Plan B.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure I've got that right.
And what's the tax levy increase for Plan C? That was the 1%?
No, it's about $500,000 is on 1% tax levy. So if you're going to increase the cost by about $450,000, $500,000, it's about 3% tax levy.
Okay. So you're saying,
I would make that statement. So Judge, I'm in complete agreement with what you say, but I just want to not leave the impression of the community that we're looking to increase 1% because we're still dealing with the budget. And we're still working with that bottom line, and whatever, if we do wind up adding, we're gonna find deductions because we're gonna offset.
Right, but it's money that we won't be able to save for future tax offset, right? Where you had in the chart of the 10-year plan, we had some years of 7-8%. it's not gonna be 6 or 7% instead, it will still be 7 or 8%. Or it might go up, it'll go up to 8, 9% versus 7, 8%. Because we're gonna not be able to save that money to offset those costs.
But if
We're gonna make other,
yeah, I was gonna say, if the reductions are made in other places,
Which is,
then it'll be. Right.
but still,
That's
you
what
have
I'm
that,
saying, in the budget process. we still
yes,
have to
but
look
you
at
still have, for this
I know.
particular situation, you have a net impact of 1% in tax levy, which when you look at it, becomes a lot more over the years because it's compounded, right? It's present value over future annuity. It's gonna be a lot more
yes.
over time than just the 1% right now. Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right page. Thank
I
you.
can argue the other way and tell you that if I reduce costs, it's reduced over the next, if I put it in the right category.
100%.
And then when you program it out, it just keeps doing this.
And that's what we want to do.
I know.
It's about
We're on the
making,
same point.
making decisions tonight.
Yes,
This
on
issue
this.
right here.
Yeah. Perfect, that's good. Want to put it in context, that's all.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about cost. I'm
No,
talking
that's
about
good.
No other issue. But one thing though is that moving from Plan A to Plan C, there would be a loss in service from the special ed plan.
Yes, I believe these, you're going with that.
Right? Okay, I just wanted to put it.
I would go,
I'm a loss.
I would go as far as to say. Plan C is probably the least that I would ever want to see our kids go to, any one of our kids with special ed needs. But I would also say to you, Plan B is okay, but we're gonna have to still move kids around, I'm sure of it, based on the boundaries. And even I kind of tried to plot out where the new boundaries, like where this kid would be, and it's difficult, right? But they're still gonna have to travel across the district, whether it's Furnace Woods to BB to Furnace Woods, whatever. But it's also going to be that they might have to be jockeying for program space, right? And I'm not referring to any tuition students, I'm referring to our ICT programs, not referring to our ABC programs because they will be centralized.
I have a question, and I know this comes with a cost, so I'm not unaware of that. But if BV and FGL, and this might be wild, because maybe I'm not looking at the map, but a lot of people live, right, close to those two schools because we're closer. Furnace Woods has more mileage in between us. Would it be so crazy to add more consistent, like at Furnace Woods, maybe you're alternating those special ed programs? I'm talking in Plan C. Whereas if you're, so like my neighbors across the street go to BV in the old model and I go to FGL. We're both close to both those schools, the proximity. So it's not as big of a deal, right? If you were to go to one or the other, right? Like you could zone me to either one, I don't care. Is there a way to look at it? Yeah. Is there a way to look at having ICT always locally for those families? That's just a thought.
I don't have that answer. I can't visualize it. I would have to see it on paper, what you're referring to, because I can't imagine that they're always gonna be centrally located. And am I gonna bump a kid from one program to another? So a centrally located kid, sorry, Greg. And I said, I can't answer that right now because I do not, I don't know the maps as well as Liz does. So if I were to say, okay, we'll always have something here, but if there's a Furnace Woods kid that needs the program, there's no space there, what do you do? Right, and it's on the other side of town. So it really is it depends on what model you choose, but I would say it depends on the location of the program. And I don't ever want to guarantee that that's something that can be done.
Yeah, it's really more of a thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thought, but you really would have to plan it out. And I think it would still improve costs.
Yeah.
To special ed.
Yeah, sure.
In the earlier plan, how many students did we have bused from one end to the other, one location to the other?
I'm sorry, it is the first part.
The general, in the older model, when we had them moving a long distance, how many students?
It depends on where the program was. So if the K program there, any kindergartner, so it could be up to 24 kids were bused to Furnace Woods. If it was 5th grade, then they were bused to Frank G, and it could be 25th. I mean, it really depends. And those are the kids that are impacted the most to be
Where they
ICT.
live. Where they live.
But those kids do not go in the regular bus.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
they do. Yes, they do.
like the ICT.
ICT, yes, but the present they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Lisa, do you have the ICT numbers?
For elementary?
Yeah,
Yes, I do.
I was just gonna look them up.
I may be off by one or two, because I did this morning, and then I put in the ABC. So without ABC, we're at like 126. And that's without your kindergarten kids. And I can't remember, Ally, did you write down the numbers that we talked about today? Because I have my other notebook with me. And I think with it was about 11% of our elementary kids have ICT.
I had the same question. So I had, we talked briefly earlier about what exactly is that number? How many, special ed students would be impacted by changing? And it was roughly, yes, 11% of our elementary population.
And K2
assuming
or
that they're not
K5?
Going to their school.
All right.
Right, no,
It's K5
cool,
right now.
yes.
It was K5 because I can't split them out until I know what model we're using.
Right.
So based on K5, right, or excuse me, K4, it's that number.
Right, so you guys assume maybe a third would be in their home school, but still, I'm trying to get that scope, and I think the scope, of how many special ed students are affected by change, this could be affected by this potential change.
We didn't go down to who's in first and second grade right now, who's in K1 right now, that.
I could go down to those numbers, but the problem is I don't know what boundaries we're gonna have, but I can give you numbers like that. Because we have, remember, we have two different programs. We have skills and ICT, so we're gonna have to become creative if we go to one, B or C. But we'll have to be creative, but I can give you those numbers if you give me 1 second. So I have them on my computer.
I have a question. So in years past, was the practice that if there's a family of 3 children or 2 children and one child has a special need, whatever the program is, and they are, so, they have to go to Furnace Woods or they have to go to BV or FGL, whichever school has the program, were the siblings allowed to go with them?
No, they're not allowed unless they're in a special program. And that is a big issue with transportation because you're adding kids to their restaurants.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes some of those kids might be ABC kids, we'll just say ABC kids.
Yeah.
They're on a special bus,
Sure.
right? So when it's an ABC, when it's an ICT kid, Liz really doesn't do that, and I don't recommend that because that is a different school, but you know what I mean? That program, that student doesn't need the programs there. So would that be something that you guys would agree to? That's totally up to you guys in transportation.
How do other districts do that?
Yeah, they do busing. Again, your numbers are such that. And the distances are the problem. I mean, I think what you wind up with in a largest district with a large footprint is the busing issue, but you may have more schools available than you have. I mean, it is unique here in that you have a large geographic area and you have a concentration of 3 buildings or 4 buildings. I forget the middle school for a minute. On the elementary, you have 2 in one area and 1 in another. And that's not the case. What I'm familiar with are they much closer together. So it was never an issue.
That's why the idea of having, if you're gonna move to a plan B, it's nice to have the 2 furthest schools, right? Because otherwise, if they were FGL and BV, well, that's not fair to the folks that come from
Correct.
far out. And we finally talked this out? I don't know, I feel like I've talked about this for my. Okay.
I'm sure I'm missing something. I can't think of it at the moment. I don't know. But we talked a lot about this.
I just have one more. Can I ask a question about economically disadvantaged? Just want to compare the A and B plan of economically disadvantaged. When you look at the percentage within the schools, they are fairly similar between A and B, but when you go to plan C, the old model, it heavily weights towards the over 50%. I think it was 50 and 55% depending on how the district lines were drawn versus 30% in the other models.
It's
Correct.
51, it's, well, just, I don't know, because the, why don't we call it out? It's 51%?
Yeah, I thought I saw 51 and 55.
At BV. This is the old model. Plan C. It's 55% at BV, 23% at Frank G, and 17% at Furnace.
Correct.
That's Plan C.
Correct, so Plan C would be heavily skewed economically disadvantaged
Yes.
towards the over the models.
And we don't have any money associated with supporting that.
Right, and, correct, and there's a 1% swing in cost from Plan A to Plan C. So from,
Say that again?
so there's a swing in cost from, which we talked about earlier, from Plan A to Plan C is about 1% tax levy. I think it was the same for Plan A to Plan B. There was a 1% swing in cost.
Yes,
Yeah.
400,000 versus a little more than.
Yeah.
So Dr. Laura, if you don't have any other questions, how does this work? What's the
Well,
next
I
step?
do.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry. So. No, it's all good. So Jen just made a good point. In Plan C, there is no additional support given to a school that is higher economically disadvantaged. If you were to evaluate going to Plan C, what improvements might you suggest there so that we would be aware of what kind of costs might be incurred?
Depending on the performance, whether it's ELA, math, then what are the skills where they're deficient, and then what are the programs you would put in place? And so it's not that easy to answer, but chances are things like lower class size, AIS supports, additional teaching assistants, all of those kinds of things to create a model that makes it more advantageous for them to learn than it is to not in a regular classroom with too large a class size. So you're probably, if you start dividing it and try to make smaller class sizes, you're looking at 97,000 per teacher that you add. And if you're adding TAs, it's probably half that, 49 or so. No, I know that. But it's just how many do you have and how many do you want to support? And then the next question is how much space do we have when we start breaking them out like that?
So can I just say, so if it's going back to the old model, we have the data around the results from the old model. Right, so I think we did have an underperforming school and we know that we would need to do that. So would then the cost for Plan C to at least achieve some level of equity, which is what we're hoping to do, is make things a little bit better, would drive the cost significantly higher. So we're talking about a lot more than 1% in swing from Plan A to Plan C.
I'm going to ask Vidya because she's really good at explaining that. And I asked you to stay, so I knew I'd pull on you once. But you did a great job of explaining that. Her data analysis in her previous job, she did a really good job of explaining what that means from the state point of view, and that's another concern we have. Can I put you on the spot?
Sure. So what's your question one more time?
So my question is, since we already have data from how the school was performing before, assuming we go back to that old model, we can use that data to make a cost estimate of what additionally we would need to add the services to give some equity to the students in the BV, because it seems like the numbers are very skewed.
Yes, so the state performance data is based on subgroups. So you can look at the poverty as a subgroup, ENL population as a subgroup, special ed as a subgroup. So each one of those make up the criteria of a school in need of improvement, which BB was before. So if you have that continuously 2 years is where the state comes in, you have to put in a tip plan. So you have to
explain improvement.
Let's say improvement plan, but we'll see.
I know, I'm trying to think what the teacher for.
Targeted improvement
Thank you.
plan.
Yeah,
Right.
we were already,
So that means you have to provide additional PD, you have to show how you're gonna make that change. That means providing more resources, providing more staff. So that's where you're talking about, you already have that data. So we could be looking at additional staff to make that equity.
so correct, and that's what I think this cost analysis might be missing then, is to get them to where they need to be, given their history. Does it even make sense to be talking about the 3 K through 5 models?
Well, I have a quick question. Benita, do you know, would we get additional funding? Do we get, if we are a targeted school, do we get more
Title.
money to pay for all of these
It's just
extras?
title money.
So, yeah, it is.
I don't know when the last time we got it, what the amount was.
So the more Title I funding is.
Margaret,
And Mark,
Title I funding is based on students who are receiving RTI and AIS services. So when you are in a school in need of improvement, you have more students in that building that needs that extra RTI AIS service. So you don't get that funding that year, but you report that data and you get it the following.
But Margaret's always taught us that the money follows the student, so aren't we getting that money now anyway?
We are getting that money, and Margaret will tell you that. I think she shared that with you, Erica, that the money follows the students. However, we were getting a substantial amount of money 2 years ago because we were a district in need of improvement for the, I think it was blacks and special ed in that building specifically. So the money was coming in and we were getting an extra $50,000 a year on top of, and then we got another 100,000. I mean, there was quite a bit of money that came with it. And don't quote me on the numbers because that's not my, but I know that Margaret and I did it together. But what's gonna happen is because all that's erased, because we went to this program, we redistricted. So the money is around, but it's not the significant money we were getting 2 years ago. Because we no longer have that school in need of improvement, right? I'm not saying we are not on any list at this point. We still get title money. It's not as great as it was 2 years ago because the status of the school really is not what that is.
It could catch up.
It could catch up. You're absolutely right. It could catch up.
So
So
we were getting the funding and it was being allocated. Does that tell us that the funding doesn't work? Like, do you know what I'm saying? If the way we're spending it well?
no, but I think you're making the assumption that it's a 100% reimbursement.
correct.
It's
I
not.
mean, it's not.
So for example, let's say we decide to put in an ELL, extra ENL teacher and regular ed teacher, another teaching assistant, and you add all that up, you're talking probably what, 350, 400? You don't get that. The title monies are, every year it gets less. It always seems to be.
It's not guaranteed. That's the problem.
That's right.
And we were guaranteed that money because we were a school in need of improvement. So we were in a city, or we were a DINI, which is a district in need of improvement. So because we had multiple subgroups, you get more money. And each year you got this much, and then the following year you got this much, and then this much, and then they reevaluate. And if we didn't get better, they would come in and they would do some work in our schools.
So
It's like it's.
I'm confused because I thought we asked this question months ago.
and it was different. There was a different answer.
The rearrangement of the elementary school had zero impact on the title funding.
It does, we still get title funding,
No.
but because we're no longer a district in need of improvement, that money goes away.
Why are we no longer a district in need of?
Because when we reallocated kids across the district, right, it's no longer,
Solve the problem.
that solved the problem. So all that past data,
So the question.
can I just finish? Because all that past data gets erased. So basically what happens is on the website, because Donna, I know Donna is in the audience and he had said something to Margaret. It says that we're in school and it's there, but it's erased. So when we got information from the state, and I'm speaking for Margaret, so please understand this is not my department. When we got a letter this year, we said, we rearranged, this is what we did, this is the percent in each building. They said, oh, okay, you're no longer eligible for this funding, but you still get your title
We're
funding.
at 0 year. The data was right.
But when we asked if there was any financial impact as a result of this, the answer was a hard no.
I don't know. if
And
that
now it
was-
sounds like the answer is yes, so I would like to know what the dollars lost were. They need to be accounted for and understood.
But it's not, those weren't title money, those were extra monies we get.
Okay,
So what Erica asked, I don't know what it was,
I
Erica.
still would like the answer on what the funding loss was.
I think it's 50,000. I think it's between 40 and 50,000.
Remember that.
We definitely lost 50 on title funding and the explanation
No,
for
it's not
that.
extra funding.
Right, so extra funding is the question that I would like to have addressed. The title funding was 50, right? And I believe the answer we were given was because, and I think we talked about this at a meeting, was because the census says that we have more people above the poverty line than we did in the previous census, so therefore we got fewer dollars. But the question when we asked about what funding was lost because of the restructuring of the elementary, we were told there was no loss as a result. So I would, yes?
Yeah, if we were
So
told
that I would like to have addressed, because that's important information in general.
I just want to clarify one more time, that this is, I'm speaking as if I know, I'm just trying to figure out what you need, and I think that I know the question, and I know part of it, I don't know the whole answer, so I'm sure Dennis can get that from Jane tomorrow.
Cool. Thank you.
So my question again is that enough of an issue to not eliminate Plan C? Because from a cost perspective, from a special ed perspective, can we just say Plan C is off the table when we talk about plans A?
Can I ask you backwards, ask you this way? Do you want the identification to return? That would be, let's look at it that way, because really what we're
It'll
trying
be a
to.
2-year gap.
We wanted to not have that designation.
Correct.
And I think we were successful in turning that around. And then to keep in mind that even what Lisa's saying, even what Benita is saying, the amount of money that comes into this program does not pay for the services that we need. It is an amount to worry about, but it is insignificant in terms of what you need to do. And then there's the stigma of having either the identification of the building or the district being.
Correct. So I'm gonna ask again, can we take Plan C off?
So I have to tell you that it upsets me a little bit because there was spending from last year to this year that I know we're looking at as zero right now. But we went into this plan and spent a lot more money. And we all just voted UPK.
But we just said we're gonna start at 0.
Okay,
This is
we're
0.
starting at zero,
So
but what
keep
I'm
talking.
saying, the reason why I like Plan C is because I'd rather put money towards that. Right, and make sure that we don't end up in the position we were in, because that should have not been the case and it shouldn't have been happening. We had warnings, we should have known, we should have addressed it.
So we're talking about, just
So
to be clear,
I'm just-
over a million, 1.5, 1.8, we were talking about,
No, no, no,
$1 million
That's
to
to
get.
mirror all services. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, for me personally, I don't want to take that plan away because I think there's a lot of value that nobody here is ever willing to discuss.
What
This
is
would
the-
be
what is the
7
value?
years.
Help me understand.
Yeah, we talked about it Monday. We sat here for 5 hours. Pre-K through 5 would give children 7 years in one place,
So it's transitions.
transitioned 100%.
Okay.
And it's not, to me, it doesn't look like significant, well, there is way to save money, and then I think that you'd have to do a lot of work. And you'd have to put improvements in.
So transitions over socioeconomic diversity, because you're not heavy load.
You're
PV
asking
again.
me
No, I'm just saying that, I'm just trying to understand that you're making a choice.
No, Corey, I'm saying that that's why I wouldn't take Plan C off. That's why I wouldn't. You can ask everybody else what they think, because I just spoke and answered your question.
So I think any boards,
So I think everybody should respond. I did.
so as a board member, right, I can make a motion for a vote or a straw poll.
Yeah.
Can we take a straw poll on taking Plan C off the table?
Yes.
Motion, anybody second? All in favor?
Taking C
A
off.
straw poll for taking C off the table.
Wait, I'm not understanding what you're doing.
I'm asking you to take a vote
narrow
on
choices.
removing C from our choices.
Narrow choices to A and B. So vote in the affirmative would be.
Need a
yeah.
motion. You believe you want a motion.
I think we should do a roll call too. You should do individually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or show of hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I need one.
Can I
Well,
clarify?
you need,
I think we need to clarify that. We're taking Plan C off the table as it sits in front of us with the socioeconomics and the division, because we did not redistrict this at all, correct?
we tried to,
There wasn't.
three
I
shots.
want to clarify this.
If you look at the, I didn't know the page number on it. So if you look at the page after the financials for Class B, you will see it says enrollment with ethnicity, but I have it highlighted and underlined after district boundary changes at the very top.
It actually.
So that actually goes up. We did about 3 reiterations of just redistricting that area. Still, it's 53, 55%.
I needed before I voted again.
And the cost swing from the current model to that would not just be the $450,000, but also to get more equity for special ed and other areas in need. We're talking probably over $1 million,
Significant.
right? Significant dollars. So we're talking to move to that model. That's why I'm asking to remove it from consideration. For at least those 2 reasons.
I just wanted to clarify, make sure that we were clarifying.
Yes. So can we take a
Go ahead.
vote?
Yeah.
Start with that.
As this stands, I'd like to take it off the table.
No, I'm not doing clapping for this. So we ask for respect. Please don't do that.
It's a hard decision for all of us. Thank you. As it stands, I'd like to take it off the table.
I would like to take it off the table.
I'm sorry. No, I already did. As it stands, I will not support this model.
I'm not gonna take it off the table right now. I don't know. I want to see, I don't want to take this off the table and then say we're all doing something else.
We all respect each other's opinions. Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter my vote at this point, but
It does.
I don't
It does.
choose to take it off the table, but it's 4-3 and I support the group. That's how this works, right?
Okay.
Is there any other model that anyone would like to take off the table?
We should talk about it again.
Yeah, there's been.
Again.
Can we talk about Plan B? Because I'm looking at Plan B and I'm trying to synthesize everything and all the communication that has come from the community. And I really am looking at Plan B. Transition means a lot. Cost means a lot to me too. I do think that if we go back to the original 82-page report that was given to the whole Board of Ed, that there are other cost efficiencies that report outlined, and it didn't take away from just one set of students. So I'm looking at Plan B as a way to do a cost, the best cost savings, hit the diversity, and also limit transitions, which help the kids' achievement educationally and education loss. And you know what? If I look at where we are and where the community is, I think Plan B, in my own opinion, is the best option for the entire community.
Can I just ask one question? So you mentioned the best cost savings for Plan B. Just to be clear, again, there's going to be an additional cost of $450,000 to move from Plan B to Plan B. So help me understand where you're talking about the cost savings.
So I'm gonna go back to the 82-page report that we got when we first started switching the elementary schools. And they talked about cost efficiencies in all the schools. So that 82-page report that's somewhere on the website outlined where you could save throughout the entire district. So when you voted, the biggest thing was cost. So what you could do for cost. I never really grasped why elementary school was where you went for all the total cost savings, because I wasn't privy to the conversations. So when I'm looking at that report and I listened to the parents who came in and talked about BV and other schools and diversity, you know, I never knew some of those issues were here. So if I listen to them and I think about transitions and I listen to other parents and I look at that report, I think that you can get savings without eliminating any programs just because there's efficiencies to be had. And you can also help every part of the community that was asking you for something, that was asking for their voice to be heard. That's, although this one is, you're right, it does, but that cost is offset by your other efficiencies that report outlined.
Okay, so I just want to go back to our original discussion and what Jeremy mentioned. We're at zero, right? So if there were additional cost savings to be had related to this plan, right? We're talking about this plan specifically. Why aren't they outlined here? Because I thought this was supposed to be the comprehensive number of what our cost savings were. And if there's something missing, I would love to have that discussion now, because that's what you're saying, is that you're saying that this number is not right.
No, I'm not saying that the number's not right, but the
Okay.
purpose for doing the plans, the original motivation behind it, but no, hear me, because I looked at Lakeland's elementary schools, and I looked at they have 5, and the breakdown of demographics, and they're wildly more off than our elementary schools. And then I looked at Carmel, and they're wildly off too. So they didn't do grade banding for diversity. They did other initiatives. They all have, I looked up all of their DEI initiatives. They all have wonderful programs for DEI initiatives. So now we are changing one of the reasons why, or actually, let me clarify that. We are changing the main reason why, if we look at it from that standpoint of diversity, why we're changing. And there's a cost factor in here too. So if I look at everything and I look at all of our goals, to achieve all of these goals, you are going to have a little bit more money into this. And you're gonna have to offset that by what that 82-page report outlines you to do. I mean, if you
I
go
don't
back and look
understand.
at it.
So I'm thinking about what's in front of us and what's been proposed to us now. So I'm still not understanding how that report is relevant to what's in front of us today. We have a cost issue that it is very clear based on what's been presented to us, and this is supposed to be a comprehensive analysis that includes all the cost savings or the additional costs. Moving to Plan B will cost us $450,000 more than staying where we are today,
But no.
correct? There's a 450,000 swing.
No, it's really,
Maybe it's 430.
from where we are
420.
today, it's 175.
Okay, so it's 175 plus the 250 saving or 214.
No,
saving.
That's a potential savings. The question
They're
is,
both potential.
but if you're saying, you can't say where we are today
Yeah.
and say 400. It's where we are today, it's 175.
it's 175.
It's where we could be tomorrow if we did A versus B.
It's a swing.
Okay,
It's
it's a swing.
yes, but it's not 400 from today. I think that's the point that Jen and Stephanie are indicating.
Yeah, it's $173,881.
But the difference between the two
Yes.
plans gives us
Yes.
almost over $400,000.
Yeah, I don't think, yes.
Or yeah, oh, you mean from where we started over a year, like at the
No,
beginning?
no,
If
I'm
you did-
looking, if you have X, if we decided to go to Plan A, you have to compare Plan A to Plan B.
Next
So if
year.
we do Plan A next year, we save $175,000. But if we do Plan B next year, we spend $250. So there is a swing of about $400,000. So that's opportunity cost for not having saved the money. So you have to look at the whole swing, which is 1% tax levy, which compounded year over year becomes a lot more, which is money we could save to offset future taxes. So from just a cost perspective, Stephanie, I'm not talking about any other issue, but we haven't talked about special ed yet. We haven't talked about programs, but just from a cost perspective, I'm not understanding where you're saying we're going to have savings in Plan B. Only because I'm looking at the data in front of me.
She's talking about the big picture here. She's talking about what is going to make. She's talking about the full community and what people have been asking, what people have been saying, and getting to a place of compromise with the community. That is what she is saying. She's saying that don't focus on the number because there's other cost savings that we can realize.
It's one
That the
component.
elementary school was targeted instead of the middle school and high school. The
Right.
board, in the prior board, chose to target the elementary school. So we're trying to, right now, the whole conversation we had all year long is to understand why. That is what I think, correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
Yes.
My question was only about cost.
Yes, that's.
I'm not talking about anything else because we understand there are going to be other savings to be had, which I'm glad Dr. Laura has brought up, that could be significant for this district, which is fantastic. And it's outside of this discussion.
Yep.
So it is not impactful to this discussion. I'm only talking about the cost question that you mentioned at this point, because I don't understand where you're saying we're going to be getting savings. by going to Plan B.
Can I say something? All the numbers here are based on next year's student population,
Yes.
okay? So we discarded number 3. But number 3 adds, we added a teacher because of split classes. That can reverse, and it's easier to reverse, and let's just compare 1 and 2, because 3 you decided.
Yes, please.
Yes. It will be easier to reduce that teacher on the second model, because you have neighborhood schools pre-K to 3 to 2, I'm sorry. On the other model, you'll never be able, it will be very difficult to reduce a teacher because you can always move the students around to other numbers. So 1 year, but for next year, I completely agree with you, Paul. But given our declining student population in the future, it might be, and it all might be, easier to reduce cost on model 2 than in model 1. And how much? Honestly, all will be assumptions. But I agree with you.
So I do want to ask a question on that, because my understanding is when you have the model that we have now, as class sizes change for the entire grade, it's a more even distribution among classes, correct?
Well, there are more sections.
There are more sections, so it's less likely that you will have to split a class. It is more likely that you will have equality among the classes, so.
I don't know about model.
Yes, so as the numbers decline, so I'm just taking the
That's what I'm
scenario.
saying. If the numbers were going up, I totally will agree with you that the likelihood that will be more expensive 2 compared to 1, because you have 3 years of neighborhood schools where 1 more and you have to split it. Here, 1 more.
And you can absorb it.
In 1, you can absorb it. That's what I'm saying.
But the reduction, doesn't it go the other way around? So for example, we have declining enrollment. Instead of having 10 classes, you can now have 9 classes.
But it's
right? And then
easier,
you can
I
reduce-
agree, but it's easier to reduce it in a neighborhood school than in a.
Why is that?
Because
This is for my.
let's say that today,
To lose 20 students.
let's say that today, like we said, next year, let's talk about next year. You needed 1 more, and to make it, let's talk about C just because that inflates the whole thing and makes it easier to understand. Next year, we would have had to add 1 teacher in the K-5 model because 2 or 3 kids did not fit in the right place.
I think
and we
it's
had to
3
split.
teachers, right? Because.
Or as many teachers as you want, but it was very, and we did it in the past, every year, at least 1 class will split. But when you have declining, let's talk about that just plan C. If in that plan C, the following year, you have declining enrollment, then you might not need the 3 new teachers. You might need less because you have declining enrollment. It's more the likelihood that will happen in K1 in model A is very little compared to model 2. If we were going the other way around, it would be the opposite, because model A will be able to absorb it a lot better than model B. So I'm not saying that will change the economics tremendously, but what I'm saying is going forward, we might, given the declining enrollment, we might be able to lose one teacher in the second model compared to the first one,
So
or more likely.
would that offset the 450,000, I'll even give it less, 415,000 in savings that we're talking about between models?
That's what I'm just
I'm
telling
only
you.
talking about cost.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you what, I'm just saying, going forward, given the declining, you will, it's more likely, that's a way to tell you. There's more likely to have more savings on B than in A.
Then,
And how much?
I'm gonna pose that in a different way then. If we decide to add new programs, to have them in 2 different schools, we have to double every new program we put in the schools, is that correct?
Yeah,
So wouldn't that be, we're talking about hypotheticals, so it's you talk about the hypothetical of the student change, I'm talking about the hypothetical of new programs.
What program?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. And the reason I wouldn't agree with it is because if you were putting in, let's say, a science program, and I was doing it in the existing model where you have banding, and I have 8 sections, I'm still gonna need so many teachers to do that, whether I just divide it in half, say, and I need 2 teachers. But if I wind up with 2 fours, I still need 2 teachers. You don't always get the efficiencies that you think you do.
Okay, that's
And that's
fair.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, just so you understand it, it's not a simple rollout and there's more here, so it costs more. It's not necessarily that, it's the number, it's really the number of sections. And that becomes the number of teachers, or in a program that says, like music, where they're split. The reason you have a stress situation that currently is when they lost that partial one, and when they explained to us how they had to redistribute it, they were all picking up more, they're running around, and you lose efficiency. So
Okay.
just adding that one would make it work better, so.
This is helpful. So in the 2 hypothetical models, we're not talking about significant savings or costs in every direction.
And I was gonna say to you, what
So-
value do you put on, I know this isn't a popular one, but I'm gonna say it anyway, because I feel that way in your note. The transition piece. So if you were asking me personally, I would take the transitions over the cost. Because the damage that I feel is done by all of that with special services and special needs on those kids later on are gonna cost you more than what you might do in a program right now, which had a longer period of.
Some costs don't have
Yes.
dollar signs.
Right,
That's right.
Thank you, I wrote that
That's
as
right.
a word. Some of us don't have dollar signs.
But then there's also the issue of diversity, equity, and
Yeah,
inclusion.
but I think those 2 that you're looking at have what we need. You get
Well, the first model is the best chance we have at true diversity, equity, and
all in
inclusion.
one place, right? No
The
question about it.
second model is not as good as the first model when it comes to that.
But numbers aren't that off.
Well, for this year, but it's very possible we get a new development and things
That's
change.
true anyway.
Absolutely, well, yes, but at least they're all together and it would reflect the community in the first model versus in the second model, if you tend to have more socioeconomically disadvantaged folks in one school area versus the other school area, you can end up with lopsided schools again. Right, and it's less likely in model A. In model B, there is a very strong chance that that could happen.
I won't disagree with you, but I will say this on model A. If you look at model A and you go over, and I've been concerned about this all along when we left it in. If you go over to Furnace Woods 4-5, the number of sections that are there and notice the rooms, there's 24 classrooms and we're already at 25. We already have an issue in that particular one. In terms of use of rooms, it's tight as it is. I've been over there.
Yeah.
The furnace
Furnace Woods.
So
Okay.
it's at that cusp of either what breaks, we're taking the chance that enrollment will continue to decrease and we'll be all right. But it's a gamble. If just the same way, I'll go to the other one that we eliminated, the same way there's a gamble on whether that 28 would actually split into a third section, or would we find out when we get there in September, 3 kids moved out and we're now down to 26s. We don't have the problems.
I'd like to make a motion for like a 3-minute recess. I think some of the board members need to stretch their legs real quick. Make a motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, thank you, public. We just need to stretch our legs. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That was a much needed stretch and bathroom break. We appreciate it. All right, so where are we at with this conversation? I know Ally, you had something you wanted to say.
Well, Erica had questions, and I asked her to hold off, so go ahead. Okay. Really? Why don't we go, you wanna go like around the horn, and everyone has a chance? Okay, so I do have, some comments. I've said a lot, probably more in the past 2 weeks than I have in 3 years. I want you guys to understand that my position, as I stated on Monday night, is not about options A, B, or C. It's about our process. And I've got some notes here that I'm gonna read because I don't want to forget anything. 2 years ago, I was part of the board that made the decision to move into Princeton Plan. At that time, I made the best decision for the information I was provided. I welcome the opportunity to apply the experience and the knowledge I've gained in the past 3 years to reconsider my decision on Princeton Plan or any other issue for that matter. A reoccurring theme has been that the April 2001 vote on the Princeton Plan was rushed, that there was insufficient data, that additional options were not adequately considered, that there was not enough engagement with affected stakeholders, that even when stakeholders were given the opportunity to weigh in, their feedback was not fully considered. The cost-saving options and analysis began back in 2018 and was introduced to the community in late 2019. After numerous board meetings, PTA meetings, and other forums that continued all the way through to April 2021 when we had our policy vote. So we had lots of engagement. There was years of this discussion going on. All of this, however, has been deemed by many in our community to have been insufficient community engagement. That message has been delivered through our strategic plan process over the past 2 years. So much so that half of our strategic plan is focused around how this district communicates with its stakeholders and how we share our decision-making with these stakeholders. Why is that not a priority here in this decision? This is not about options A, B, and C for me. This is how we engage our students, our stakeholders. I'm not rushing you. Okay. I want to make sure I don't forget anything. These ideas, the option B in particular, was just introduced 3 weeks ago. We're just seeing financial data tonight. There's been no public forums. There's been no community engagement, particularly about these new data that we're getting tonight or potentially redistricting. Have we not learned anything on how we need to engage our stakeholders? Further, the idea that the vast majority of the community supports one plan or another is you can't support that. We've gotten so many emails and public speakers, and we have forums. There's no clear-cut answer. I think that we've been CC'd on a lot of these emails that the community doesn't have access to, but they've been around for the public forums. There are thousands of stakeholders in our district, taxpayers, students, teachers. We've only heard from a few, and there was no consensus from those few. I've mentioned it before, but it's not even necessary to get into the other significant issues that must be addressed by our district in the coming months. We have construction at BV. We're installing a nuclear safety monitoring system. We have capital projects that we need to evaluate, a strategic plan to implement, as well as every day educating students. There is not enough time to engage our stakeholders and adequately consider and implement any of these changes. The first year Princeton Plan has not been free of problems. It hasn't. I would like to propose the formation of a stakeholder committee of parents, teachers, and administration that's committed to answering and addressing these ongoing concerns. With more data, we will have the opportunity for a thorough analysis and discussion and months to engage with the community to consider factors that prior boards were accused of not considering. My vote tonight is not for the Princeton Plan or against it. It's a vote for us to refrain from repeating the mistakes we've made in the past. So as we move forward tonight, I hope we can take my message to heart. Our community wants transparency. It wants to be involved in the discussion and the decision-making. It's incumbent upon us as trustees to gather this objective data share it with the community, give them an opportunity to be heard, and then as much as possible, allow them to have a seat at the table with the decision making. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ally. I know that you spent a lot of time thinking about this because it eats you up and I appreciate it. So I guess my kind of response to you is I hear you, like I wholeheartedly hear you. I wish that that is what happened years ago, right? I do, I hear you. However, I don't know that it was really ever fully clear, transparent, the reasoning and all of that, and that's why we are here today. I have to tell you that I have spent the last, I don't know how many months of my life, 24/7, well, let's say 27, because I do sleep a few hours, speaking with families and community members, and I'm not quite sure that I can sit up here and look families in the face and not try my best to make improvement.
And I want to make improvements.
No, I'm not saying you don't. I'm just
I
telling
would
you. But for me, going through a whole nother school year of someone calling me and saying, oh, this child urinated on the bus and this child fell asleep, and I know we can improve transportation. The school avoidance and the separation of children and families, like, I don't know, I've heard from the community, families should be together, right? I know that's gone, it's off the table, but this is why I feel compelled to make a change. I don't want to see the community continue dividing. I really don't. It's like gotta stop, and I feel like we can do those things, right? You can do all those things. We've been hosting community forums, we've had people here, we've had emails, we've had a specific forum just on the topic. It's been all year long. And I think that what we can do is whatever this board decides, we can actually take that feedback and use it to make it the best, whatever it is that everybody agrees to, whatever the majority votes for is what it is. But those things that you mentioned are incredible and need to be used. I just think that we need to stop the bleed, make a decision, and then as a community of parents and board members and administrators and teachers, just all come together to make it the best that it can be. Everybody loses something in some way. Everybody gains something in some way. You know, there's a lot at stake here. And now Plan C is off the table. I honestly am feeling torn up over this. I really am. I really am.
That's funny, I guess.
But all I'm saying is that for me, I really think parents just need to know what's going on. They need to move forward with their lives. COVID started and it's just been a ripple effect. Teachers too, right? We hear the teachers, but who wants to live through another year of maybe they're gonna change it the following year?
But maybe
or
they're
the
gonna
following
change
year?
it, but who knows if he's sitting at this table in a year and maybe they're
I
gonna
understand.
change it anyway. I just want to make sure that we have considered the big picture. And you've heard from a lot of families, but what about the people you haven't heard from? And that is what I'm afraid of. Who have we not heard from? And is 5 months really even enough time to pull off any plan, any change? Is that enough time? That's my concern and that's my hesitation. And that's why my vote is to stay where we are and thoroughly consider all of the options and make a long-term plan for the district.
I also just want to ask.
No,
Hold on a second. I don't work here. I'm just a volunteer. Dr. Laura, is it possible? Is it not possible? Do you think that this is undertaking way too much to try to implement any shift? You know, we're the man running show.
No, I don't think it's a problem. You're talking about placement of students. You're not talking about uprooting the entire curriculum and instructional program. So it's there. It's a matter of where it's being housed. We have the buildings, we have facilities. It's a matter of, all right, I've got to move people around, whatever we're going to do to rearrange it. And we've got our busing in place. So no, I do feel I can do it. We can do it.
I appreciate your confidence. You've been here just a month and some of us on this table have been here a long time. And we're using our experience with the community to inform our decision making.
Oh, we're gonna go around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went first last time. I'm not going.
We should go around.
Yeah, does anybody else have?
You go.
No, you're on this.
Are we voting? I don't know.
No, we're just making comments.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the comment that this decision was done during COVID, when the community was shut out, they were not allowed to speak. And a lot of us were worried I know I was bleaching my groceries. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on. I was surviving and hoping my family survived. I didn't even know that we were changing. So when I found out, I couldn't even come and say anything to the board, and the time had passed to write in a letter. So I am not surprised that people are pissed. Okay, because I was pissed. So that was gonna happen regardless. So now I go back to what we've done differently this year, because I was sitting there last year. What we've done differently is we had the community forums that never happened for Princeton Plan. Okay, where people got to get up and speak. We had other community forums. Now, I'm talking about when the decision was made. Okay, we've extended audience comments and stayed here till 11:30, almost 12 o'clock. Okay, no one has been cut off at the microphone. No red sign has been flashed telling you your time is up. There has been respect for the most part. I have seen a community being torn apart, and everyone's voice is valid and every opinion is real. I don't discount anything that anyone is saying. So if we are going to go forward, a decision has to be made. This community is begging you for direction. They want a decision. They want to know what we're doing. And we owe them that. I don't think we're rushing it. And I do. We toured those buildings and we saw how much the teachers packed up. We all volunteered to help you on that because it was amazing. That is not anything that would happen this time. I think we learned a little bit from that. But I'm really thinking about what we can do to bring the community together. Derek?
I don't have a lot of new information to share this evening. I think that a lot of my thoughts, concerns, and interests have been shared publicly already. I think that no one feels good when they get nothing. And I think that people shouldn't be put in buckets of winners and losers. And for me, it's a very simple fact. And it's a concept of everybody walks away a little unhappy, like I said the other night. Then I think we're probably finding ourselves a little bit closer to the right place. So I don't have a long-winded diatribe. I'm disappointed that we're even in this position. I feel terrible for our community. When we have a vote in a moment, if you don't like my vote, I don't think that I'm sorry for it, but I welcome conversation nonetheless, and an opportunity to hear what we can do to make sure that if it's anything different than what we have, that it's executed well. I don't know if teachers have ever had the level of comfort to email the board in the past. I hope that this board has created an environment that teachers felt comfortable to email. I don't know if, maybe I'm mistaken, but from what I hear, I hope that it's been a process that has allowed a sense of openness and a lack of retaliatory effort if you say something that's disagreed with by those on the other end of the email. So I'll thank you for sharing your thoughts, your comments, your concerns, and I appreciate that this board has created an environment that you feel comfortable to email us. So thank you.
All right, this is, for me, to Ally's point, this has been a long road for me because I have been involved in these conversations since the beginning, the Princeton plan. And until you really see and you really hear and you read the emails that we receive, and I literally went back to September. It took me about 6 hours and I read every single email. I listened to every single public comment. And I really digested where we were. And I thought about the percentages of parents and the community members that we have heard from that were for or against, or just were begging us just to make a change and fix. And unfortunately, just like a lot of things that we have done in the past at HHCSD, we were just checking boxes, always checking boxes. We never really listened and processed. So while I hear what you're saying, Ally, we have had more engagement. The work session on Monday was huge. That has never happened here before. We've been more open, more transparent. We've accepted more public feedback. We've solicited, we have listened, we have responded. And by the way, in a non-condescending way, in a very kind way, okay? We're listening, we're hearing. This decision and the way that it feels rushed is because we have been trying so hard to get to this point as a board, okay? I'm gonna go back because I think it's important for me to explain this. A few months ago, we were presented with numbers about community schools and what they look like. And I will be honest, I'm a Frank G parent. I live Frank G, love Frank G. I think everyone that knows me knows that. I get beat up a lot for it actually because of my loyalty. When I saw the numbers, the current numbers of our schools, we always knew Frank G was bigger. But when you look at it on paper and you start to really digest the disparities on paper, because when you're in it, you don't, I have to say, when you're in it, I don't think you see it as much as when you are hearing it over and over and over again, right? So I recognize that. I also recognize that Frank G. Lindsay just has a lot of kids in it. The other two buildings were very small, but you cannot ignore that. So I will say that I never believed in a two-year grade banding model. I never did. I did a lot of research in this. I spent hours and hours of my life on a Princeton Plan Committee, as a PTA president, providing information to the community that the board wasn't providing. Okay, that was my role here. Hours and hours and hours of my time in my life because I was that committed to it. And I didn't feel heard. And I brought up things like, what's music gonna look like? How are these kids gonna perform? What's graduation gonna look like? And I was told, don't worry, Erica, it'll work out. Take a breath, okay? And we got to this year and we started to hear from parents. And we were trying, because we can't tell our administrators what to do. They have to fix things. But we're trying. Send an email. We're hearing from a lot of parents that lunch at one of the schools doesn't seem right. Kids are not seeing their friends. Please address it. I never got confirmation that that was fixed. So these are high-level concerns that were never addressed. We have an opportunity here to make this the best and better, because we know that if we don't do something now and we wait, we're transitioning kids again, and then we're transitioning them again. So I have spent a lot of time thinking about this, but I know where I stand, and I'm comfortable with it. It took me a long time to get here, but I am comfortable with it.
My kids, all went through BB. I supported Princeton Plan when it was rolled out for vote. I've seen the disparity within our schools. Something that has plagued me for a while. But this has been a learning. I don't think any of us came in here with, I think everyone on this board has learned a lot. So from where we came to where we are has been a struggle and a journey. And I think it's time to move forward. So I know where I stand.
So I have been doing a lot of introspection over all this time, and there are mistakes that were made before that I don't want to make again. I keep thinking to myself, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. The first time I trusted the administration to get things done after the vote. That was a mistake. The rollout did not go as everyone had hoped. After years of planning and more than enough time to get it done right. And Dr. Laurel, with all due respect, I think you're fantastic. But I am very skeptical that we can get this done again in this short amount of time. When I look at my fiduciary duty, right, my duty is to the students of this district and to the community on the whole. It is not to my kids when I sit on this board seat, right? It is to the community. And I have to think about what this community is going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. And are we setting this community up for success by rushing through an implementation that if we make the decision tonight, we've got a few months to get it done versus years of planning that we had last time and it didn't go well. Very concerned about that. When I look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, I feel like the Plan A model, the plan we have today, gives us the best opportunity to get the best DEI results that we can over time, regardless of how the community changes. And it will change over time. It absolutely will change, whether it's declining or raising enrollments, it will change. So when I think about the other model and I think towards 10, 20 years in the future, you're bifurcating the schools again. And we're literally creating a division line in the community. And you're going to have one school that will potentially be challenged and another school that might have it all. And it might not happen like that. It very well might not, but there's a chance that it could. And I don't want to set up our community for that potential division in the future. And when I think about kids, and we talked about the future of learning and having them all together and rising together and having these transition experiences together where we have to trust our teachers to make those transitions positive experiences. I never wanted to be a helicopter parent, right? I wanted my kids to learn to deal with adversity, to deal with challenge and deal with it on their own. And I would want that for any other kid in the district, right? So when I think about the community on the whole, when I think about the students, the best opportunity for our students in this community to come together as a single HUD community is with Plan A. And it is something that we already have in place. So we can just make it better. There are things that need to be fixed with it, absolutely 100%. But moving to another model, besides the cost implications now, because voting for Plan B, you are voting for an extra 1% compounded over time in additional tax levy. So there is the cost perspective of that. You are voting for less of a chance of having true DEI by voting for Plan B. You are voting for 3 months to plan or 4 months to plan to get this done and execute a change to Plan B. I can't vote for that Plan B in good conscience. I can't. I would say if there was more time to study, I would be open to listening to more about Plan B. If we can achieve all those goals and deal with all my concerns, I would want to take the time. We haven't even given this model a chance to get some information on how the students are reacting to it. We've had 8 months. We haven't had a full year. We haven't even had a single transition in this model. So we don't know how the transitions are going to go.
You already transitioned a bunch of kids.
We did, and please let me finish. Okay, under this model, you have not had the kids move from one grade to another. We had a transition going into this model, but this isn't a discussion. Okay, I am concerned that we don't even have the information on what a true transition looks like, what the positives and negatives are. So how can we say that this model doesn't work when we haven't even given it a chance? I want to be open. I want to listen. I want to give everybody an opportunity to talk to me and convince me one way or the other. And I feel like making the same mistake again as far as rushing this if Plan B is voted for. And I would be disappointed for this community if Plan B was voted on tonight.
So I actually want to just throw in, I don't know that I don't want to do a hard vote, okay? I really don't, unless you guys disagree with me. I would like everybody to go home and sleep on things. And we will come with policy options the next time we meet, right? And decide what we're doing from there. But I do think we made good progress. One thing that I don't think we can. I don't, with timing. So we are up against the timeline with we have to just add me. But what if not all 7 of us are available? I get your point that you want us to sleep on it and think and give the opportunity. We actually can't vote on it. We need,
It's on the agenda, right?
yeah, we need the policy language. But no, this is like a gentle vote.
Well, you vote on the model.
We already.
Right, the
And
model.
then, right, and then you adjust the policy based on the model, and then you
But then
vote
you
on
have
the
to vote.
policy. You have to vote on the model before you write up the policy.
Oh.
Unless you want to come with 2 versions of the policy.
Well, that's what I would say to do. But my point is, I don't think with the entire board, I don't think there's another day where all of us are. Well, we'll have to, I would make myself. I mean, I'm sure that we can find a way. But either way, listen, if you guys want to vote, you want to vote. I was just throwing out that I feel like maybe you need to. I gives the community an opportunity to weigh in. I think that's a great idea. I'm worried logistically, we don't have time to make that happen. Yeah, are the constraints of the budget schedule and the teachers' contracts, they need to know where they're being assigned. Yeah. No, totally. Corey, I just want to comment on the doesn't work thing. I don't think that anything doesn't work. I think we can make anything work. I think the point is that we're trying to address,
It doesn't work out, I don't remember.
you just said it's choose to consider model doesn't work. Right?
Okay, that's.
Did I misunderstand?
No.
Okay.
That's good.
I just don't want, we're not sitting here saying it doesn't work, like it's like it works or it doesn't, right? I just think that we're hearing all of the issues that we ran into. Some of them are not, you can't solve. And I think that, the concern of transition is major. I mean, Dr. Lauro has studied education and he tells us avoid as many transitions as possible, right? So I don't think it's about what works and what doesn't work. I think it's just more about what is truly better for the students. I don't know that I'm right. I'm just saying, I think that's what we're trying to do.
I think we're all, right, we all have our hearts in the right place.
Right, that's what I said.
Everybody on this board, right, has good intentions. And we're all trying to make the best decisions for the students and the community. We talked again about the fiduciary duty. So I don't think there's any question about that. I respect and love all of them, right? And just the fact that we have philosophical differences, people have differences all the time, especially in the home with your family. I'm sure everybody has fights with their family, right? But when we make a decision, it's got to come from the heart. And it's got to really be focused on what's right for the community. And, I think I said my piece, but, I appreciate this. I like your thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Carmen or Dr. Lauro, can you weigh in on our time constraints and what we have to do and when?
Oh, competitions tonight.
Oh, for sure. Wait, hold on, we can do that right now for you because we know that we're not going.
Of it, so.
No, but listen, Plan A or B needs those 2 buses. Plan C was taken off the table.
I thought that Plan A does not need that to us.
No, A and B need it.
Well, A only needed it, if I remember this correctly, if we decide to move to 25-minute ride caps.
But we
If we stay with 35 minutes,
We need it.
we're okay is where we
We
are.
need
No, we need
I
that.
thought that we didn't need it in Plan A.
No, it's Plan C, community.
Dr. Lauro, did you have a conversation?
She said Plan A and Plan B. It was the 2 that she told me to put it in.
Yeah, so A and B, so
Correct.
basically what I'm saying is we can vote on that right now for you and check the box. So what am I, don't check boxes, but I'm trying to help Carmen.
All right, then it's okay.
Carmen, what do I have to do for,
And Greg float the proposition?
I gotta read it?
No.
Okay.
No, but I just want to point out the issue is whether you want to put it up as one
Yeah, okay.
or split.
Sure. Well, we already decided. We want to split it. No.
I thought it was optional.
Yeah, I think now that we're moving forward with
B or A or B, the only option is to get more buses.
Yeah, yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. So what did I?
Two additional buses.
Yes, yes, yes.
And to replace the in part of it. That's the answer to this
So
one.
it'll be 6 additional.
Before we do it, let's just think for a second. Now, I like sometimes to think worst case scenario. If we put one and it goes down,
Then we get 0 buses. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
we get 0 buses. We cannot improve our transportation for next year for any of the 2 models. That's why I said I think we need to.
That's what I thought.
Because, and you explained it well, you said these 2 are replacement cycle. These 2 are for model A or B. So I'm not hypothetical. I live in this community and I did not like the board's decision, so I don't want the new bosses, but I want. If I still have the 2 bosses, we don't get, if that proposition goes down. And the problem is that we cannot fix transportation.
Okay. I get your logic. I think,
Well-
and if you vote no to the 4 buses, well, then we don't get any, right, then we get.
Well, then there's a message there, you know.
But we don't.
Then we don't know what we'll do. I mean,
Right.
honestly, we don't know, then we really have a
We
problem.
really need to make sure that
And
we get.
transportation will not get fixed for next year.
What is the language gonna read? Is it what you have here?
We,
Cause I see how you word that to make a difference on whether somebody
Yes.
supports it. So
and
I need
we
to
will
know.
have, we will have to talk to our lawyers to see what is, today it's only a proposition saying, we need up to X amount of money for buses. And that's the way it's been for the last 20 years or since I've been here. However, if we decide to go with the 2 propositions, maybe to make it a little bit simpler, and for people to know is these are the 2 replacements, and these are for additional routes.
So we can, tonight, we can vote to approve 4 buses and worry about the language that goes on the ballot later.
First, you need to decide 1 proposition or 2 propositions. Then if you decide 1 proposition is very simple, it's the
Right.
same as last year. You know, 4 buses. If it's 2 propositions, we will have to call the lawyers and say, what is it that the proposition should say?
But that can happen at a later date. That does not have, we don't have to have that language tonight. Okay, it can happen.
Well, it's gonna happen, it has to go into the newspaper.
Oh, that's true.
So
Oh.
we're gonna get the language together, get into the newspapers.
Does that language have to be approved by the board in a public meeting?
Yes.
Oh, wait a second, you don't have the language. What do we have here? What do you
No,
have
it's
ready for
like
us
that.
tonight?
Here we said 4 buses.
Oh, you have it combined here.
Yes.
And but then I have a proposition up there for just the 2 buses.
When does it have to get into the paper by?
March, well, I have to get it to probably next week, have to, they on Thursdays. And Fridays, 31st is the deadline, so probably by the end of next week, I have to submit it to the newspapers.
We only need 4 members.
I was gonna say, we'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
we want to figure it out, they gotta.
Okay,
So let me ask you guys a question then. So we can all take a straw poll now, why we have 7 of us. We can all agree that we are in agreement to put up 4 buses. We can agree that we're going to do it in 2 parts.
Mhm.
So all of the components outside the language of each proposition, if the agreement amongst us is to go 2 and 2, then we'll just use the language that they're gonna be providing for us anyway that we vote on. So we can all kind of cover our bases here together, and then 4 of us can get together at some point in the next few days, once the language is finalized. Does that work, Dr. Laura or Carmen?
And again, before you make any decisions, I'm just giving you the worst case scenario.
no, it's helpful.
So you know, both proposition in this district, since I've been here, have always garnered more votes than any trustee, any budget, but Erica Mills. It is the outlier. Every time both propositions have the most yes votes. I'm just saying.
So what am I?
This is slightly weird year though.
I know.
It's a bit of uncertainty around.
That's why, but
Yeah.
But for you guys to be comfortable, I mean, Dennis and I discussed it yesterday, this morning, and we did not agree. We did not agree, but in order for you to make the right decision, we need to give you both sides. No, Dennis?
Oh, no, that we said. We didn't agree on which of the two.
So for now,
So yes to the library, can you guys
Okay.
vote on the library?
Yeah.
Can I have a motion to approve the library proposition? First, second, all in favor? All right. And we're gonna vote on the bus part. Well, we're gonna straw poll it. Because we can't officially approve it for different language.
I don't, what do you think your language is gonna be? I'm thinking it's gonna be either or.
Here comes the other questions to the board. Would you like in the proposition to say, like any other proposition, or you want to specify that one is for replacement cycle and the other one to add it? Or just we put it, it will be 2 and 2, and we'll put it in our booklet and explain it in our booklet. That's up to you guys.
I have a slight opinion. I think you might actually put it in with risk by splitting it up in two. Because you're gonna have a lot of people who aren't at these meetings, who don't pay attention. And that's the majority, that was a majority of our voters, right? There are 60% of our voters don't have kids in the district. And a very small percentage of them, and I met just a couple today, who might not have kids in the district that are here at the meetings, but that's very rare.
Sorry, and let me give you my side, because if I'm one of them, I'm like, oh my God, it's 4 buses.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand 2, but 4, maybe I'll call it, That's what I'm saying. That's my side of the argument. Then
We need the buses.
but they don't care because they don't have kids in the district.
Right.
And then this argument is exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
It has always passed, why not this time?
Well, our worst case scenario, if it doesn't pass,
No.
then we have we don't have 2 replacement buses. So then how does that impact ride time? Does that mean we can't use them, or it just means the repairs go up on it?
The problem, first, the replacement buses will cost more because now we have to fix them more. That's not the problem. The problem is that then we cannot fix the routes because we're planning 2 more buses to fix the to go from 25 to 30 or whatever. That's what I'm saying. The problem is if only one passes, transportation stays as it is today with max or next week, because next week is changing.
Right, I'm risk averse. I'm in favor of splitting them. I want to see the final language to make sure what the messaging that we're putting out to the community.
That's a question to the board. That's what I'm saying. Does the board want?
Well, because if one is our traditional replacement cycle and the other is to improve transportation services.
But
To
that,
reduce the ride time of students.
Yeah.
but that, again, that's a proposition that you guys have to decide tonight if that's what you want in the proposition. Because it's a proposition, it's your proposition.
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
you
that's
just
number
want
one.
the proposition like any other year
No.
for the 2, and then explaining the newsletter that we had 2 propositions, 1 for replacement and 1 for no. So it's up to you, that's for you to discuss.
I'm gonna make an official motion to have separate 2 and 2. With the language to be determined, one articulating that it's the traditional replacement cycle, and the second is to improve transportation services by reducing bus travel times or something for that matter. Okay. Anybody else? Okay,
I vote no. I think you're putting, I think there are gonna be a lot of people that might vote down that second one. And I'm really concerned about that.
So you want them together.
I want them together.
Ladies,
I'm leaning towards them being together.
my logical brain thinks that people will see two and not.
So I think so I'll share, I was torn on this, I'm glad we're discussing it actually. I think the combination almost compels the yes, because it will otherwise eliminate the two you already need, they're not an option, right? And I think if we put the language such that we need the buses in order to A, replace life cycle, or we're gonna be short two, and we need two more, then you're giving people a chance to go, I don't really care if they don't have shorter ride time.
to keep them together, but putting that language in anyway?
I think it may make sense why you're asking for four. I think it correlates with our entire theme of transparency. I think it explains why you're asking for four and you're not being willy-nilly, and that it also makes it a lot harder to say no when you're obligated to replace the two. No
Okay,
matter
I
what.
don't disagree. I just am nervous.
I'm with
because
the first
big
one.
ask of our.
I know.
Our usual propositions are like 500,000. What was it last year? Last year was
Up to
200.
500, yeah.
So, yeah.
And this is going to be up to 640, no? Between the two. 680.
What was the year before? Do you remember?
It's always been between 500,000 and 550, but it's, I think you know what? Let me give you the right information tomorrow, so you can make a decision with the exact right information. Because my recollection is 500,000 or less, and only 1 year we went over 500,000. But I don't want for you to make a decision based on my recollection.
So we're back to, we need to decide if we're doing one or two.
Right now.
You know?
But you just said something different.
No, I said, if you wanna play the game, I know, my suggestion, I just said. We're working on the end result of this is why I don't like
This
something
changes
out
it,
of,
though.
I don't like things out of the context of the whole budget, so I'm gonna return to the whole budget. And I'm speaking here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you look at it that way, and it's about a 1% of just this.
Yeah.
You can go the other route on the overall budget, which means I'm gonna find 400,000, 600,000, whatever, we can do that. So you propose that instead of the zero that we were arriving at for the tax levy, we go to a -1, then offset by that, and then you're back to zero.
But it's 500,000. Is there any state aid on this, on the buses?
Of course.
Yeah.
So it's not truly 500,000.
Well, what you're asking is for the money,
Yes,
and then you
correct.
get it back. But
Oh, it's 680 and then it becomes 500. So.
no. What I said is in the past has been up to 500, or maybe 1 year 550. This year, between the four of them, is 680.
Okay.
And then our transportation ratio went up. I don't remember, I'm sorry. I think it was either 22 or 32. So really, let's say that it's 20% to make it simple, is 680 less.
It's 130 less.
So
Yeah, like 500.
again.
But in the past, it was always 500 less 10%, so it was 450.
So do we ask the community to vote for 500,000 or? do we ask for
No.
680? We have to ask for 680.
Yeah, because you get reimbursed,
But we get reimbursed. Can we put that in there that?
not in the proposition.
But that can go in the pamphlet, right? That can go in the
Yes.
pamphlet, and then the proposition is the ask with a little description as to what you're for the people that are just showing up to vote, did read the
I
pamphlet.
think we're on the same page. I think that the splitting is risky, and I trust our parents to do the right things by the kids. That there will be a large majority of parents that come out and say, you know what, we need to reduce ride times. I get it with the buses, no matter what side of grade banding you're on.
So just really quick. Did you vote, Jen? Or
No,
not?
I'm kidding. I think like I said, I'm good with either way.
We're good with
I
the
think it's a
single.
lot of money to ask, but we need it, so
Well, and by the way, the good thing again is that we're expected to go with a 0.1 to 0.3% tax levy increase.
It's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. Please idea of being transparent in the language though, maybe adding something in there about why, or no, or then are we? I like that. Okay.
And we have to work with the attorney, that's what.
And the attorney will let us know if they can do it. I'm not sure about that.
Because it's all.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not, okay. Well, our spirit is the ask and then they can tell us what we're allowed to.
Or there's the pamphlet.
So we have to do a good job with communication. Yeah, to the community. I mean, transparent.
Yes, please.
Can we vote on the EPC too?
Yeah,
let's
do
do
it.
it.
Come on.
I'm gonna call motion to vote for the
Everything at once,
buses.
or all once or something together?
The last vote was to do two. And
So we just- Canceling that. Canceling that.
Motion.
I'm making a formal motion to vote on one combined bus proposition.
Perform-
With hopefully with language that is clear to the community.
If there are words less.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
Aye.
All in favor?
4 buses.
4 buses.
There's a proposition for 4 buses for 680, right? Okay.
Okay, we need the EPC vote, right? Okay, can I,
Can I have a motion?
oh, we don't have to say,
So, yes, you just let it ride. No,
she's got it, huh?
you should say that it carried. It
Okay.
carried what? I don't even know what
Motion carries.
Right.
How many? Everybody unanimously, motion carried unanimously for 4 buses on the proposition.
The language specifying where the-
The next one is the EPC. Can I have a motion to approve the EPC proposition? Second? All in favor? The motion was unanimous and the board voted for the EPC on the proposition. Okay, so we got that out of the way.
Wait, I have a question
What?
on the EPC.
Oh, okay.
Do we also need to make a motion for that 10% vote?
No.
That's all part of it.
That's part of that. Okay, perfect.
And to make it clear, you don't have to make a motion on the EPC. What you're making, the EPC, the board can do it on its own. But for the proposition, the whole point is a 10% gap.
Thanks.
Okay.
And also what we are going to try to explain in the proposition is that we're going to do it no matter what. If you vote yes,
We get $500,000. Right. If you vote no.
It's very.
Pays for the buses.
exactly.
Pays for the buses.
I'm still unclear though whether we need to make a decision on options A or B tonight. I don't understand the timing.
Like, yeah, me.
Do you need, where are we with timing and what do we need to do here?
It has to go, it's the same thing, correct?
Well, the papers have nothing to do, we don't include the budget number in the paper. It's only the bond propositions that we have to put the amount, dollar amounts in the papers. So the budget amount is not going to. If we don't adopt this budget until May, when's the final one? May. No, that's gonna be the final one.
Yeah.
And then we have a public hearing, May something.
I think we should vote.
By then, we already got
Yeah.
the number that they, yeah.
April 12th.
Yeah, I think people are just looking for direction and an answer. And we waited a long time. I think we should vote.
Making a motion.
Yes, I'm making a motion to vote on Plan A or B.
Which one is affirmative?
Oh,
We need a second.
yes, that's what we're voting for. I make a motion to vote Plan B.
We need a second.
I second.
Do you want us to go roll call around?
I would do roll call.
You want Jeremy to start, Jeremy?
Yeah.
He gave a second. That doesn't mean he's necessary. He's just not-
I vote for Plan B.
Plan B, sorry, Plan B. Plan A, no change. Plan B.
And
Plan B. Plan B. So the board voted for, I'm sorry, the board voted for Plan B with a 5-2 vote in favor of.
Yeah, no, yeah. Okay, now we're finally, thank you for your patience. Oh, wait, we have, where's, I'm going to, right now.
Public comments on the agenda items.
I know. Okay, we're getting to our audience comments on agenda items, finally. Thank you for your patience.
Everybody signed up.
Yeah. Let's start with the first speaker. Same rules apply. We're all tired. 3 minutes.
I think it's Rachel Benson.
Rachel? Rachel's a no.
Okay. Joan Bowles. I'm sorry, I can't see who's writing, so if I miss, I'm gonna try to. Am I going?
No.
I'm gonna go like 10 seconds.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for all the hard work that you're doing. I don't think the mic is on. Oh, what was I gonna say? Kristen and Eric earlier tonight talked about Indian Point. And Dr. Laura, you made a comment that if there was state funding out there, that you were gonna look into it. So I'm just asking if you can do that and then bring that back so that we hear it here at the board meeting so that it's on your radar. That was it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Lynn Linden.
Gentlemen. My daughter is now over at BV and she's loving the Princeton's plan primarily because the students that she has access to is a much larger pool now. That her happiness plays a big factor in how well she learns. And I contribute that a huge amount to the fact that she has a larger student body that she's able to socialize with and find her good niche of friends. And I worry that if we start splitting up schools, we're gonna start having kids who go, I used to play with them, I don't get to see them anymore. And it's just like preschool all over again, going into kindergarten. And another issue that I've noticed is the efficiency of these meetings. In general, we have kind of 3 phases I'm seeing here where a proposal is made, and then a huge question and answer period, and then final decisions on that. And it feels like we're rushing that and not doing it in an efficient way that I normally see in the tech companies. I've been working myself at IBM for like 24 years, and I see this kind of the model across a lot of big tech companies is to have proposals and then have a longer discussion period on a messaging board with good threaded and feedback, and also more importantly, having the conversation being held for future employees. The idea I'm saying is like having institutional intelligence being built into long-term discussions being held on for a while. Like when you have new board members, you're gonna end up asking the same questions over and over and not being able to easily see, did they ask this question a year ago or not? And it's not searchable. And so I really strongly recommend we look going forward into using like Slack and some other tools. Like Slack offers an 85% discount for educational institutions, and scoping that towards your discussions that you're having here. So you have your proposals, have it online, and then have a 5-day period in which the board members are able to ask questions about the proposal and get the real answers they need rather than feeling rushed and have people asking, well, I can't give you that answer right now. Instead, and then being able to only have to spend 10 minutes voting on it after you've had a few days to get your answers. And that would greatly reduce the durations of these meetings. So just like right now, I wouldn't be talking at 10:45, I'd be talking at 9 o'clock. And so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? Can we follow up and find an assessment?
Open meeting before, I'm not open meeting.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I know, that's why.
Yeah, it would be great to do that.
I don't know if it's legal.
Government. Yeah, but government.
I have a paper that I was gonna read and I changed it numerous times and now I want to throw it out the window. I was gonna ask you and beg you to slow down, not make a hasty decision. Your justification that it wasn't done last time or that it's a hard process is not justification for rushing something like this. I was gonna say that last time the Princeton plan process took 3 years and you're making this decision in 3 weeks. I was gonna tell you that I believe a majority of our community really does want an equitable educational model for all, and that yes means our current model without compromise. But what you did was you voted in a plan that costs more and gives less to a community that wanted equity and less bias for their children. Shame on you. What you did was unethical, and I'm frankly shocked by many of you. You also did it before many of us had a chance to talk, so you didn't even listen to us. We waited for 3 hours, yet you refused to listen to us. And if I go past my 3 minutes, are you gonna cut me off? I was gonna tell you that I heard discussion about the impact of transitions on children. What about the impact of class bias, inequity, social stigma, labels on children's learning or their self-esteem? I firmly believe that those issues, bias, inequity, stigma, and labels are just as damaging, if not more. Have you researched those? Or have you only researched what works within your narrative? You want data and metrics? Okay, let's have a consultant do an equity audit. Find out where we succeed and where we're lacking. If DEI is truly a core goal in the strategic plan of our district, let's find out how we're doing. That study can help us inform when and if we shift our model. And you mentioned that essentially you're gonna find the 1% if you go with Plan B. Where are you gonna find that? Because it seems to me like you're gonna look for it in middle school and high school. And you're essentially gonna rob those schools to fund your unethical, really rushed, flawed, more expensive model. So, you know, I'm up here speaking, as I've been speaking for 3 years for this plan. I think it was the right way to go. I don't think it was ever truly given a chance at success. I think a lot of time was spent pointing fingers and not fixing. Within the past 2 weeks, you have fixed transportation because you finally brought in someone that you've decided you trust. You could have done that in September. You could have fixed the logistics. And we could have looked and seen how this model truly worked throughout this entire year. Instead, you gave the district and the future of the district 3 weeks. I am totally off script, but that's what I wanted to say. And again, shame on you. I expected more. Thank you.
After the negativity that we've had in this community, and especially what we saw online today, I wanted to come up here and say thank you to each of you. You are servicing our community, you are giving of your time, you are getting paid for this. To say it's a thankless job doesn't even begin to describe what you guys go through in here, in this room, and in the community, and what you hear about you, your families, your parenting styles. It's disgusting what has happened, and it's horrifying to me that we have people in this community who are willing to disparage people like you who are servant leaders. That being said, I am very disappointed in the vote tonight. I will echo Michelle. I respect all of you, and this is why I can come here and say this. I am thankful for you being up there. At the same time, I don't agree with it. The vote should have waited until at least you heard from more people. If you had already made up your minds coming in here, if you had made up your minds by then, it would have at least been a show to the community that you do want to hear from us. Because to say that you do and then take a vote and have people come up here and speak on the topic you just voted on is a little bit backwards. Okay. So going back to the positivity, because I wanted to end on a positive note, I will support you and I will be out there in the community pushing for other people to support you because I think that's what we need to do. It's the only way we're going to heal. So again, thank you for being up here. Thank you for the hard decisions that you make. Thank you for putting up with all the BS that you have to. And know that there are a lot more of us, I think, who are in your favor and we're there to back you up than there are who are like that disgusting person who posted this morning online. So, thank you.
Next week is Jamal Espinal.
We can't hear you from it.
Jamal Espinal. Oh. I apologize. This thing left die.
Okay, good evening. Like everyone else, whatever I was gonna say, it's changed a little bit. As someone said before, you know, you're making decisions without a large part of the community. You have an entire huge, look at the data, an entire huge Spanish speaking. Our board meetings, our PTA meetings, nothing is translated. What efforts have been done to reach out to those folks? Someone had said in a previous meeting, oh, let's look at PTA enrollment. There are single mothers, single fathers, people who are working. They're not coming to BOA meetings that go on for 8 years. They're not at PTA meetings, they're feeding their children, they're working. Where is their input? To make a decision like that without the entire community, as the kids would say, that's not cool, bro. The teachers, it's like they're a side thought. They're with our kids more than we are. You're not even considering all the hard work that they've put in. It just frustrates me that the needs of this community is always in the hands of the few, the entitled few, those who have the time and the resources to make decisions, those who have the time and the resources to review the data and to prove their point. You're not, like someone has said, they're not thinking about just their kids, they're thinking of all the kids. There is absolutely positively no way you can have 2 separate schools and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is absolutely positively impossible. And you have the data. So what are you really doing? What are you really doing? From equity, we can start to look at equality. We can start to look at inclusion. We can start to look at all of these things. But you're not gonna have it. In transitions, we all did it. They're home with mommy, then they go to grandma, then they go to nursery school, then they go to daycare, then they go to a pre-K. And all of a sudden, we're like, oh, now they're doing transitions. Positive transitions, thoughtful, the way in which we do it is what matters. And you did not even give it a chance. And I'm not gonna sit, now what do you, another transition to put my kids back in another school that they just left? That's, I urge you and I beg you, please, reconsider. I know a lot of people are really happy now, yes, if it went my way, I might have been happy too. But I wasn't upset when someone said, let's take a minute to think about this before we rush into something. Like someone said, it took years to get to this point. So I'm just hoping that everyone will understand that the small minority can't continue to make decisions on the majority that many are suffering. And it's not fair. And it seems like it's not going to be fair. And this is not the district that this is the district I was told about. And that's why I didn't want to move here. But I felt that there was hope and there was something more. And that's what I was looking forward to. And I'll let the other folks speak. Thank you. Rick Boyle?
Hi there. I wasn't gonna speak tonight, but I applaud everything you do. And I go back, I've been listening to the meetings online for a few months now. You're in an impossible spot. But I think you've already made a decision, and now the hard work starts. You talked in your meetings before about some criteria for success. I think you need to make those visible, and you need to prove your decision was right based on that. Some examples. You talk on this side about transition. You talk on this side about budget. You talk on this side about the kids at equity. You need to come up with some kind of grid. You know, you always hear about pros and cons. It's not that simple. That'll be a grid that shows what's our criteria for success. Now, unfortunately, you can make your decisions. You have to make that map, and we know we can make anything with data. But that's how you're gonna end up making your communications out to your stakeholder. You got teachers, you got parents, kind of put them together but separately, because that goes on in the school. Now you have other people, and I'll sit here and say, my kids went to this school, and I love this school. I didn't go to school, but I love this school. And now I'm sitting here saying, I'm in this community, I love this community. I don't have a kid in this community. So you, in your prior conversation, you talk about stakeholders like someone like me, and I'm sure you have a lot here. You really got to make sure your messaging hits the point for every stakeholder that you all talk about. I applaud the hard work you put in. I'm going to use, I think Jeremy said it tonight. No matter what decision you make, not everyone's going to be happy. But now you've made one and you have to live with it. And you have to make sure that you can communicate it properly to all. My ask of you, if you cannot communicate that successfully, yeah, you have a plan, a direction, but don't do it. Because then you're all going to have to answer that question. So the famous, we know we're going to get asked these 15 questions by these people. We better have an answer. And you, unfortunately, as board members, like, you don't agree with the decision, maybe, but now you all have to support it. And you all have to speak the same language going forward. So again, I applaud everything you guys do. There's no right answer. And now you have to make it right if you make a decision. That's my ask. Thank you.
Riley Cole.
Hi, I'm Kylie Cole, speaking as a parent of a future hopefully pre-K student. This is very unplanned and very out of character for me because I hate public speaking. But I am a Hen Hud graduate. My child will be the 4th generation that graduates from Hen Hud, hopefully. I chose to stay here. I chose to live here. I wanted better for my daughter. I wanted my daughter to have access to all of her peers. I wanted her to have a different education than I had, where the divide was crossed straight down the middle of the community. I lived through it. I wanted different for her, and I'm going to get emotional, but I just wanted different for my child. And I think this was a rushed decision, and I'm very sad. I'm just very sad for our community because we were doing something really amazing here and we didn't give it a chance. We've been trying to make a change in this community so that we are one homogenous group and we just went backwards, and I'm really sad as a parent.
Thank you, Megan.
Good evening, board. I wasn't planning on making a speech tonight, but I just wanted to say that I know you guys got put in a difficult spot, and I know that I probably put a lot of you guys in a difficult spot. I've sent a lot of emails and I've with my concerns and things that I have with data. So I just want to say thank you guys for trying to come together and try to find some kind of compromise for the community. I think that you guys got put in a very difficult situation due to the prior board, and I think that you guys found a way to try to make things right. And I think that if you see it out the right way, as this gentleman saying here, and you put some KPI, key performance indicators, and you set the right pillars in place on what you're actually going to look for to make this model work, and you can achieve that model. And I think it can make everybody happy. It's very obvious here, and I wrote this in a Facebook post earlier today, right, that DEI is obviously an issue in the community. I'm not here long enough to speak about it. I haven't lived through it. I'm from the city. I'm born and raised in the Bronx. So, I've been around people, all different races, socioeconomics, all this other stuff. It's obviously an issue here. So what I would say is that when I look at everything that has to do with DEI, I don't see anything really concrete that talks about like an implementation program, what your mission statement is, who your DEI ambassadors are, and what kind of DEI training teachers have. So you've had this plan in place, Princeton plan, and it's just like, and I understand that may help with diversity. I don't really see how that helps with equity. So what I would say is that if we're gonna go on this model now and stay on some type of a grade banding, really spend the time to make sure that everybody's happy with it. Personally, I'm happy with what you guys chose. I'm not thrilled. I really want a K-5. Everybody here knows that, right? That's really what I wanted. But I'm happy with a compromise. But to make everybody happy, we really need to achieve. My two biggest things are I wanted my family to stay together, and I wanted, I didn't want the transitions. So I think I got a little bit of that. I didn't get everything that I wanted, but in order to piecemeal everybody together, you really need to try to have the administration put together the proper DEI policies that are in place in order to make everybody happy. DEI is not something that you can just sit in a room and talk about. It's a very, in my job, I deal with DEI a lot. It's a very intricate system. It takes a lot of people and a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort. It's not something that happens overnight. It's definitely not something that's gonna happen in 8 months. It needs to be something that's laid out. I don't even see the framework for that already here. So if we're gonna continue down Plan B, which obviously I'm happier about than the Princeton plan, do the community a favor for the people who are upset tonight and really put together some type of a stakeholders committee or something like that. And we can ensure that DEI is put down the right path. Because I've looked through endless policies and I see all these pretty statements and stuff like that. But I don't really see anything being done to actually issue that. And I think that when you get that done, you can make both things work. So I know my time is running out. I want to say thank you guys for trying to piecemeal it even together. And I think that hopefully this works out for everyone. So thank you.
I'm actually gonna be super quick about this. And I'm gonna try not to cry. I had to sit with a friend just now and actually look at the lines to figure out if she was still gonna be in the same district as me, as far as school goes. And clearly, with the decision that this board just rushed and made in 3 weeks, is not gonna happen, because again, you've drawn lines all over the place of who's gonna go where. How can you speak community when this is being done? You guys see the divide in this room? It's in the room, it's everywhere in this district. And you didn't listen. You still plowed ahead after 7 months of implementing a plan where we spent money. A lot of you ran on fiscal responsibility. This plan that you just voted yes for costs more. It doesn't solve any of the bias. It does not address equity at all, not once. Separate is not equal. It is not. So you can do whatever justifications in your mind you need to do to say that you did a good thing for the community, but all you've done is just blocked out the other half of the community that's been speaking and yelling and asking you to listen. Listen, take the time, study the data, do the work. The other board did years of work and they made a decision, and look at that rollout. And after 7 months of the Princeton plan, you guys have decided that you're now gonna vote, right? And pass a whole new plan and have it all implemented, smooth sailing by September. Forget about all the teachers that are sitting in this room that you didn't even give the chance to speak before you voted. They educate our children. Do they not deserve the respect either for you to listen? We're all gonna have to now figure out how we're gonna come together as one hen hud with the lines that are gonna be drawn. I hope that this board also, while they're doing all this voting and votoramas that are done so quickly in a span of no time, is also gonna get an outside consultant to actually do the district lines and ensure that we do have equity in this community, because equal is not the same. It isn't. So yes, half are cheering, the other half are sad. A lot of people in this room are sad. A lot of people at home are sad. I'm sad. The fact that I have to look at a map with a friend to decide where are you on the map when our kids are both in the same grade is unacceptable. This board should be ashamed of what they did today.
Well, that's people. All right. I don't think there's any other topics, right? Okay. Can I have a motion to close the meeting? For a second? All in favor?